Standing alone at my cousin's wedding entrance, I heard my sister's cruel whisper carry across the foyer. Poor Selena couldn't even find a date. Still single at 28 while everyone else is married. My mother nodded in agreement as relatives exchanged pitying glances. I clutched my clutch tighter, forcing myself to walk forward when suddenly the grand doors burst open. A man in a perfectly tailored suit strode in, took my hand, and announced, "Sorry I'm late, love." What happened next changed everything. The Morrison Campbell wedding was exactly the kind of event I'd been dreading for months. My cousin Amy had chosen the Riverside Country Club with its sweeping views of the Potomac and crystal chandeliers that caught the late afternoon sun. I should have been admiring the elegant white roses and baby's breath centerpieces, but instead, I found myself cornered by my family's relentless commentary. "Selena, sweetie, you really should have brought someone," my mother Patricia said for the third time since I'd arrived. She adjusted the pearls at her neck, a gesture I recognized as her preparing for a lecture. "Your sister Madison managed to find Brad when she was only 23. You're 28 now. Time isn't on your side." I smoothed my navy cocktail dress, the one I'd bought specifically because it made me feel confident and professional. "Mom, I've told you, I'm focused on my career right now. The promotion to marketing director didn't come from dating." "A career." Madison scoffed from her seat at our assigned table. She rubbed her slightly rounded belly, her second pregnancy in 3 years of marriage. "That's what women say when they can't find a husband. Trust me, Selena, no boardroom success compares to having someone who loves you come home every night." The irony of her statement would hit me later, but in that moment, I only felt the familiar sting of inadequacy. Around us, the reception hall filled with couples. My aunts and uncles arrived in pairs, cousins brought their significant others, and even my teenage cousin Jerome had brought his girlfriend from high school. The wedding coordinator, a efficient woman with a clipboard, guided me to table 12. As I walked across the room, I caught fragments of conversation that made my stomach twist. "Isn't that Patricia's older daughter, the single one? 28 and still alone. Her mother must be beside herself. I heard she's married to her job. You know how that ends." Table 12 was tucked in a corner half hidden by a potted palm. The place cards told the story myself Jerome, who'd apparently be sitting with his girlfriend at another table. After all, my great-aunt Dorothy, who was 92 and hard of hearing, and 3 empty seats that the coordinator quickly removed. "We had to do some last-minute reshuffling," she explained apologetically. "This is our flexible seating area. The singles table." They'd actually put me at the singles table with an elderly aunt who spent most events asleep in her chair. I sat down and poured myself a generous glass of the table wine, wondering how long I'd have to stay before I could politely escape. The invitation had been addressed to Selena Winters and guest, but I'd RSVP'd for one, not because I couldn't find a date, but because I'd recently ended a relationship that had become toxic. Marcus had been charming at first, successful and attentive, until his control issues surfaced. Breaking free had been the best decision I'd made in years. But try explaining that to a family who measured worth in wedding rings and baby announcements. The ceremony itself had been beautiful. Amy looked radiant in her dress, and her groom Campbell had actually teared up when she walked down the aisle. I'd felt a genuine moment of joy for them, remembering when Amy and I used to play wedding as kids in my parents' backyard. She'd always said she wanted a fairy tale wedding, and she'd gotten it. The cocktail hour passed in a blur of forced conversations. My Uncle Robert asked if I'd tried online dating. My Aunt Sheila suggested I might be too picky. My cousin Mark's wife offered to set me up with her brother, who'd just gotten divorced and wasn't ready for anything serious, but maybe that's perfect for you. By the time we moved to the reception hall for dinner, I'd heard every possible variation of concern for my single status. The seating arrangements only amplified the humiliation. From my corner table, I watched the couples tables in the center of the room laughing and toasting, while Great Aunt Dorothy dozed beside me, and the busboys used our table as a staging area, clearly recognizing it as the least important spot in the room. The speeches began, and I tried to focus on the positive stories about Amy and Campbell. Then my Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, took the microphone. She was slightly tipsy from the cocktail hour, her voice carrying across the hall with unfortunate clarity. "Marriage is a gift," she began, raising her champagne flute. "Finding your soulmate, your other half, the person who completes you. It's what life is all about. Amy and Campbell, you found that magic." She paused, her eyes scanning the room and landing on me. "And for those still searching, don't give up hope. Love finds us when we're ready for it. Sometimes we have to stop being so independent, so focused on other things, and open our hearts to what really matters." The pause after her words felt eternal. I knew everyone knew that the speech had been directed at me. Sympathetic glances turned my way, making me want to sink through the floor. But the worst was yet to come. During the dinner service, as I picked at my salmon and tried to make conversation with a now-awake Dorothy about her garden, I excused myself to use the restroom. The hallway outside the reception hall was blessed quiet, but as I approached the ladies' room, I heard my mother's voice carrying from around the corner. "I'm at my wit's end with Selena," she was saying to someone. 28 years old, pretty enough smart certainly, but she refuses to be realistic about her situation. "Do you know Dr. Morrison? My dentist. His son just got divorced. 35, 2 kids, but he's not picky about age or the fact that she's never been married. I'm thinking of arranging a dinner. Sometimes these girls need a push in the right direction." My stomach turned. Not picky about age, I was 28, not 45. And the way she said it, like I was expired milk they were trying to pawn off on anyone who'd take me. I didn't go to the restroom. Instead, I found myself in the beautiful marble bathroom on the second floor, the one reserved for the bridal party. I locked myself in a stall and let the tears fall. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears of frustration and hurt. I was successful. I'd just been promoted to marketing director at a tech startup that was growing rapidly. I volunteered at the literacy center every Saturday. I'd run 2 half marathons this year. I had a beautiful apartment in Georgetown that I decorated myself. I had friends, hobbies, a life I'd built and was proud of, but none of that mattered to my family. All they saw was what was missing: a ring on my finger and a man by my side. After several minutes, I cleaned up my face, reapplied my lipstick, and gave myself a pep talk in the mirror. 2 more hours. I could survive 2 more hours, then make an excuse about an early morning meeting and leave. I descended the stairs, squared my shoulders, and prepared to return to my exile at table 12. The universe, it seemed, had other plans. I was halfway down the elegant curved staircase when I heard the commotion outside. Through the tall windows flanking the country club's entrance, I watched a sleek black Bentley glide to a stop in the circular drive. The valet attendant scrambled clearly, recognizing the vehicle as something beyond their usual Mercedes and BMWs. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out. Even from my vantage point, I could see he was tall, over 6 feet, wearing a charcoal suit that looked like it had been sewn onto his body by angels. He moved with the kind of confidence that came from never having to question whether you belonged somewhere. Dark hair, precisely styled, caught the light as he turned to hand his keys to the stunned valet. I found myself pausing on the stairs, oddly captivated. He pulled out his phone, frowning at the screen, then looked up at the country club's facade with what appeared to be confusion. His free hand ran through his hair, disturbing its perfection in a way that somehow made him more attractive. Shaking off my momentary distraction, I continued down to the reception hall. I had my own humiliation to return to. I didn't need to gawk at late wedding guests like some teenager. The reception was in full swing when I slipped back in. The band had started playing and couples were beginning to fill the dance floor. Madison waved at me from across the room with fake concern. probably about to ask if I was feeling all right code for, "Were you crying in the bathroom like a spinster?" I just reached my table when I noticed him again. The man from the Bentley stood at the entrance to the reception hall speaking with the wedding coordinator. She was shaking her head, gesturing toward the main entrance, apparently giving directions. He showed her something on his phone, and her expression shifted to confusion. That's when his eyes found mine. It was like something out of those romantic movies I pretended I didn't watch. Across the crowded room, through the swaying couples and bustling waitstaff, we locked eyes. His were gray. I realized the color of storm clouds over the ocean. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then he smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of his lips that made my pulse skip. He said something to the coordinator, who shrugged and stepped aside. And then he was walking straight toward me. My mind raced. Did I know him? Was he someone from work I didn't recognize out of context? A client? But no, I would remember meeting someone who looked like they'd stepped off the cover of Forbes magazine. He navigated through the tables with easy grace, never breaking eye contact. My family members started to notice heads turning to track his progress. Madison's mouth fell open slightly. My mother's conversation with her table stopped mid-sentence. He reached me just as I stood, some instinct making me rise to meet him. Up close, he was even more striking. Those gray eyes held flecks of blue, and there was a thin scar through his left eyebrow that added character to his otherwise perfect face. "You must be Selena," he said, and his voice was like aged whiskey, smooth with just enough burn. He took my hand, and I was too stunned to pull away. His grip was warm, firm, confident. "I'm so sorry I'm late, darling. Traffic from the airport was horrible." My brain short-circuited. Darling, late for what? Who was this man? Before I could form words, he lifted my hand and brushed his lips across my knuckles, a gesture that should have been cheesy but somehow wasn't. "Daniel Hawthorne," he said loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear. "I hope you can forgive me. I know how important your cousin's wedding is to you." The murmur that went through my family's tables was almost comical. I caught fragments. "Selena's boyfriend." She never mentioned. "Daniel Hawthorne, why does that sound familiar?" I should have corrected him immediately, should have politely explained he had the wrong person, the wrong wedding, the wrong everything. But something in his eyes stopped me. There was intelligence there, sharp and knowing, and something else. A question, a challenge, an invitation to play along. "Daniel," I heard myself say, surprising us both with how steady my voice sounded. I was starting to worry. His smile widened, and he tucked my hand into the crook of his arm as naturally as if we'd done it 1,000 times. "Never doubt me, love. I promised I'd be here, didn't I? Though I do have to admit, I went to the Morrison-Chen wedding at the Fairmont first. Apparently, there's more than one Morrison getting married in Washington today." The explanation was so smooth, so plausible, that I found myself almost believing it. The wedding coordinator's confusion suddenly made sense. 2 Morrison weddings, an easy mistake for someone flying in from out of town. "How was Singapore?" I asked, playing along with no idea why. "Did the merger go through?" His eyes sparkled with approval. "Exhausting but successful. I closed the deal yesterday morning. The board is thrilled, but enough about work." He guided me away from the singles table, his hand warm on the small of my back. "I believe I owe your family a proper introduction. You've told me so much about them." As we walked toward my parents' table, I caught our reflection in one of the mirrored walls. We looked like a couple. His dark elegance complemented my navy dress perfectly. The way he inclined his head toward me, attentive and protective, sold the illusion completely. My mother stood as we approached, her expression cycling through surprise, suspicion, and something that might have been impressed approval. My father looked up from his whiskey with more interest than he'd shown in me in years. "Mom, Dad," I said, sounding more confident than I felt. "This is Daniel Hawthorne. I'm sorry I didn't mention he was coming. It was uncertain with his work schedule." Daniel released me only to extend his hand to my father. Mr. Winters, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Selena speaks so highly of you. His handshake was exactly right, firm but not challenging. Mrs. Winters, I can see where Selena gets her beauty. My mother actually blushed. Madison appeared at her elbow, Brad trailing behind, looking bored as usual. I'm Madison, my sister said, extending her hand with the same gesture she used when meeting Brad's business associates. Selena's sister. She's never mentioned you. Selena can be very private about her personal life, Daniel said smoothly. One of the things I admire about her. In my position, discretion is valuable. I'm sure you understand. Your position? Madison pressed. I run a few companies, Daniel said with studied casualness. Nothing as interesting as Selena's work in tech marketing. Have you seen the campaign she designed for the new app launch? Brilliant strategy. He knew about my work. How did he know about my work? Someone at the neighboring table was frantically typing on their phone. I heard a gasp, then urgent whispers. The name Hawthorne Industries floated over, followed by CEO and billion with a B. My mother's entire demeanor changed. You must sit with us, she said, already signaling a waiter. We'll have a chair brought over immediately. That's kind of you, Daniel said, but I believe they've already set a place for me. He glanced toward my lonely corner table. Besides, I've been looking forward to meeting Selena's great-aunt Dorothy. Selena tells me she has wonderful stories about the family history. The way he maneuvered us back to the singles table, making it seem like a choice rather than an exile, was masterful. As we walked, he leaned close to my ear. Play along, he whispered, his breath warm against my skin. I'll explain everything. Trust me. Trust him? I didn't even know him. But something about the evening, about the surreal turn from humiliation to whatever this was, made me nod. As we settled at table 12 now, suddenly, the focus of intense family attention, Dorothy woke from her doze. She looked at Daniel with cloudy eyes that suddenly sharpened. My goodness, she said more clearly than she'd spoken all evening, you have Anna's eyes. Daniel's composed mask slipped for just a moment, showing genuine surprise. You knew my grandmother. But Dorothy was already drifting back into confusion, mumbling about gardens and tea parties from decades past. Curiouser and curiouser, Musa, I murmured, accepting the champagne Daniel poured for me. He clinked his glass against mine, that mysterious smile playing at his lips again. You have no idea, but I promise Selena Winters by the end of this evening, everything will make sense. As I sipped my champagne, fielding amazed looks from my family and trying to appear like I knew exactly what was happening, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had just taken a sharp turn into completely uncharted territory. The singles table had become the most interesting spot in the room, and my humiliation had transformed into something else entirely. I just wished I knew what. The transformation was immediate and complete. Table 12, which had been Siberia 5 minutes ago, suddenly became the center of gravity in the reception hall. Relatives who hadn't acknowledged me all evening were craning their necks for a better view. The waitstaff, picking up on the shift in dynamics, appeared with fresh champagne flutes and an extra setting that materialized as if by magic. Daniel handled it all with the ease of someone accustomed to being the focus of attention. He helped me with my chair, before taking his own, a small gesture that my traditional mother would notice and approve of. His movements were economical, precise, but not stiff. This was a man comfortable in his own skin and any situation. Oi, so, I said quietly as the band launched into a jazzy rendition of Fly Me to the Moon. Are you gonna tell me what's happening here? We're having dinner at your cousin's wedding, he replied, those gray eyes dancing with amusement. Which, by the way, is lovely. Amy has excellent taste. The flowers are particularly nice. You know Amy's name. You mentioned it in the foyer. You have a very expressive face, Selena. When you're concentrating, you get this little line right here. He gestured toward his own forehead. It's charming. Before I could respond to that bit of unsettling observation, Madison approached our table with the determination of a heat-seeking missile. Brad followed reluctantly, clearly, more interested in the open bar than family drama. "So, Daniel," Madison began, sitting uninvited in the empty chair beside him. "Tell us about yourself. It's so strange that Selena never mentioned she was seeing someone. We're very close." The lie was so bold I almost choked on my water. Madison and I spoke maybe once a month, usually when she needed to brag about something or Mom forced us onto a three-way call. "Well," Daniel said, settling back in his chair with the air of someone about to tell a favorite story, "I suppose Selena was being considerate of my complicated schedule. We met 6 months ago at the Children's Hospital Charity Gala. I was there representing the Hawthorne Foundation, and Selena was volunteering with the literacy program. Have you seen her read to the children? She does these voices for all the characters. There was this one little boy, Marcus, who wouldn't speak to anyone, but by the end of Selena's story time, he was laughing and asking for another book." My mouth fell open slightly. I did volunteer at Children's Hospital. There was a boy named Marcus who'd been selectively mute after a trauma. How could Daniel possibly know that? Madison's eyes narrowed. 6 months, but she went to the Richardsons' anniversary party alone just last month. "I was in Tokyo," Daniel said smoothly, "finalizing a partnership with Yamamoto Industries." Selena understood. "One of the things I appreciate most about her is how she respects that we both have demanding careers. Unlike some people who need constant attention and validation, Selena is secure in herself. It's refreshing." The subtle dig at Madison wasn't lost on anyone. My sister's cheeks flushed pink. "What exactly does the Hawthorne Foundation do?" Brad asked, finally showing interest in something beyond his scotch. "Various philanthropic endeavors," Daniel replied. "Education, healthcare, technology access for underprivileged communities. Selena actually gave me the idea for our latest initiative. She mentioned how many brilliant kids in the literacy program could benefit from coding classes. We're launching a pilot program next month." This was news to me, but I tried to look like I knew all about it. The coding idea was something I'd mentioned to the program director just last week. "How is this possible?" "And Hawthorne Industries," someone asked from the next table over. Word had spread and an audience was gathering. Daniel sighed as if the topic bored him. "Technology, primarily. AI development, sustainable energy solutions, some biotech. Nothing as innovative as what Selena's startup is doing with targeted marketing algorithms. Did you know her last campaign increased user engagement by 47%? He was right. Exactly right. Those numbers hadn't even been released publicly yet. My mother appeared with perfect timing, having recruited Amy's wedding photographer. "We need pictures," she announced, "for the family album." "Mom, this is Amy's wedding," I protested weakly. "Nonsense. Just a few quick shots. David doesn't mind, do you, David?" The photographer, clearly aware he was dealing with the mother of a family member and not wanting to create drama, nodded diplomatically. "A few quick ones wouldn't hurt." Daniel stood smoothly, helping me to my feet. "Where would you like us, Mrs. Winters?" "Please call me Patricia," my mother simpered. Actually simpered. I'd never seen her simper in my life. As we posed for photos, Daniel's hand rested lightly on my waist, properly positioned but somehow still intimate. He smelled incredible, like sandalwood and something uniquely masculine. "Lean in a bit closer," the photographer suggested. "Perfect. You two look like you've been together for years." "It feels like it," Daniel murmured loud enough for others to hear. "Some connections are just instant. The moment I saw Selena at that gala surrounded by children reading with such passion and joy, I knew she was special." Click, click, click. The camera captured moment after moment of this elaborate fiction. "Tell us about your family, Daniel." My Aunt Patricia called out, wine making her bold. "Are your parents in business as well?" A shadow crossed Daniel's features, gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "My parents passed when I was young." My grandmother raised me. She died recently, actually. She would have loved Selena. The crowd made appropriate sympathetic noises, but I caught something deeper in his expression. This at least wasn't part of the performance. We returned to our seats as dinner was served. Aunt Dorothy had dozed off again, occasionally murmuring names from the past. Daniel engaged her gently when she woke, showing genuine patience with her confusion. Between courses, relatives found excuses to stop by our table. Each time, Daniel knew exactly what to say. He complimented my cousin Teresa on her recent promotion. How did he know? Asked my Uncle Robert about his classic car restoration again. How, and even engaged my teenage cousin Jerome in a surprisingly knowledgeable discussion about video game development. Did Selena tell you I'm interested in game design? Jerome asked eagerly. She mentioned you're quite talented, Daniel confirmed. If you're serious about it, send me your portfolio. I know some people at Electronic Arts who are always looking for fresh perspectives. Jerome looked like he might faint from excitement. The evening progressed with surreal smoothness. Daniel and I fell into an easy rhythm, playing off each other like skilled dance partners. When the band called for couples to join the bride and groom on the floor, he offered me his hand with old-fashioned gallantry. "Shall we?" I let him lead me onto the floor, acutely aware of every eye in the room following us. The band was playing At Last by Etta James, slow and romantic. "You're a good dancer," I said as he guided me through a simple foxtrot. "Oh, but boarding school, bro," he replied. "They were big on teaching us to be proper gentlemen, though I don't think they intended for us to use those skills to deceive entire wedding receptions." "About that," I began, but he spun me gently, cutting off my words. "Not yet," he said quietly, "after the toast." "What toast?" His smile was mischievous. "Patience, Selena. Trust the process." As the song ended, he dipped me slightly, earning scattered applause from onlookers. We were returning to our seats when the best man clinked his glass, calling for toasts to the happy couple. Various family members and friends took turns at the microphone, sharing memories and wishes for Amy and Campbell. I was beginning to relax, thinking we'd navigated the worst of it when Daniel stood. "If I may," he said, accepting the microphone with easy confidence. My stomach dropped. What was he doing? "I know I'm not family yet," he began, and that "yet" sent ripples through the crowd, but I wanted to thank Amy and Campbell for including me tonight. Watching two people commit to building a life together is always moving, but it's particularly meaningful when you're with someone who's changed your own perspective on partnership. He looked directly at me, and I forgot how to breathe. Selena came into my life when I'd almost given up on finding someone who could see past the surface, someone more interested in character than portfolios, more impressed by kindness than connections. She volunteers not because it looks good or networks well, but because she genuinely cares. She succeeds in her career not by stepping on others, but by lifting them up. She reads to children, mentors young women in tech, and still finds time to call her grandmother every Sunday. That was true. All of it was true. So Amy and Campbell, as you start this journey together, I wish you what I've found with Selena, a partner who makes you want to be your best self, who challenges you to grow, and who reminds you daily that the most valuable things in life can't be measured in market shares or social standings. He raised his glass. "May you find in each other what I've found in this remarkable woman. To love, to partnership, and to futures brighter than we dare imagine." The room erupted in applause and raised glasses. I sat frozen, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his words. It was a performance, I reminded myself. All of this was an elaborate show, so why did it feel so real? Daniel returned to his seat amid congratulations and knowing looks. My mother was openly crying. Madison looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. And somewhere in the back of the room, I heard someone whisper, "Spring wedding in Tuscany. Did you hear that?" He mentioned a spring wedding in Tuscany. The whisper spread like wildfire. Within minutes, half the room was buzzing about our supposed upcoming nuptials. My mother's tears of joy intensified. Madison knocked over her champagne flute, sending golden liquid cascading across the white tablecloth. Tuscany! I hissed at Daniel under the cover of waitstaff, cleaning up Madison's spill. His eyes sparkled with barely contained mirth. Too much, I was gonna say, Paris, but it seemed cliché. You can't just announce fake wedding plans. Who said they're fake? He asked, then laughed at my expression. Relax, Selena. By tomorrow, they'll think they misheard. Collective wedding reception memory is notoriously unreliable. But looking at my mother's face, already deep in wedding planning mode, I wasn't so sure. What had started as a rescue from humiliation was spiraling into something far more complicated. And we still had hours of reception left to navigate. The toast had been like throwing chum to sharks. Within minutes of Daniel's return to his seat, my family circled with predatory precision. They descended during the break, between dinner and cake cutting, when the band took a break and guests mingled. There was no escape. My mother arrived, first having commandeered 2 chairs from a nearby table. She positioned them strategically, creating an impromptu interrogation zone around Daniel and me. Madison flanked her right, while my aunts Patricia and Sheila materialized on the left. Even my father drifted over, abandoning his usual post at the bar. So Daniel, my mother began, her voice honey sweet, with an undertone of steel I recognized from childhood. 6 months, you said funny Selena never mentioned you. Not once. Mom, I warned, but Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. Patricia, you know how private Selena can be, he said smoothly. When we first started seeing each other, I was in the middle of a hostile takeover attempt. The press was circling like vultures. We agreed to keep things quiet until the dust settled. A hostile takeover. My father perked up, showing more interest than he had in any of my achievements. Which company? Syntech Industries. They were trying to force a merger that would have cost thousands of jobs. We managed to block it and restructure instead. Kept all the employees, actually increased benefits. That was you. Uncle Robert had joined the group. I read about that in the Wall Street Journal. Brilliant maneuvering with the shareholders. Daniel shrugged modestly. Team effort. Though Selena actually gave me the key insight. She mentioned something about employee loyalty being undervalued in modern metrics. Changed our entire approach. I had said something like that months ago to a colleague at happy hour. How could he possibly know? Madison leaned forward, her pregnancy glow not dimming her prosecutorial instincts. Where exactly did you go to school, Daniel? Harvard for undergrad, Stanford for my MBA, he replied easily, though the most valuable education came from my grandmother. She built her fortune from nothing after my grandfather died. Taught me that money without purpose is just paper. Harvard, Madison repeated, exchanging glances with Brad. What year? Graduated 15 years ago. Why? Brad's expression shifted. He'd been largely silent, nursing his drink, but now his eyes sharpened with recognition. Wait, Daniel Hawthorne, you were in Professor Morrison's advanced finance class. Guilty. You were at Harvard Business. 2 years behind you, Brad admitted reluctantly. Everyone still talked about your thesis on ethical capitalism. Morrison used it as required reading. This unexpected validation from Brad of all people sent ripples through the family group. If Brad knew him from Harvard, Daniel was real. The questioning shifted from suspicion to curiosity. Tell us about this Tuscany wedding, Aunt Patricia pressed. Spring is so soon. Have you chosen a venue? We're considering Villa Settignal, Daniel said, naming what I assumed was a real place. Though Selena hasn't decided yet. She mentioned maybe preferring something local, closer to family. Tuscany sounds perfect, my mother interrupted quickly. Selena loves Italy. Remember that semester in Florence, sweetheart? I did remember. It had been the best 4 months of college studying art history and feeling completely free for the first time in my life. She still dreams in Italian sometimes, Daniel added with a fond smile. It's endearing. How? How could he know that I'd only mentioned it once to my roommate years ago? What about children? Madison asked bluntly. Selena's not getting any younger. Madison, I snapped, mortification flooding through me. What? It's a valid question. You're 28. If you want more than one or two, you need to start planning. We've discussed it, Daniel said calmly. We both want children eventually, but Selena's career is taking off right now. That marketing director promotion is just the beginning. I wouldn't dream of asking her to sideline her ambitions for my timeline. How refreshing, Aunt Sheila murmured, shooting a pointed look at her own husband. Besides, Daniel continued, my companies are in expansion mode. We're looking at offices in London and Singapore. It wouldn't be fair to start a family when I might need to travel extensively. When we have children, I intend to be present. Your company's plural, my father asked. I thought it was just Hawthorne Industries. Hawthorne Industries is the umbrella corporation. There are several subsidiaries. Tech development, renewable energy, biomedical research, plus the foundation, of course. Of course, Madison echoed faintly. Her own husband ran a small investment firm that had been struggling lately, I knew from Mom's gossip. And you met at a charity gala, Aunt Patricia pressed. Which one exactly? This felt like a trap. There were only so many galas in D.C., and my family attended most of them. The Children's Hospital, Spring Benefit, Daniel replied without hesitation. Not the main ballroom event. The smaller donor appreciation dinner in the observatory. Selena was there representing the literacy program. She was wearing a midnight blue gown with silver details. I remember because she'd spilled champagne on it while demonstrating a dragon voice to one of the board members' children, and she just laughed it off. Most women would have been mortified. Selena turned it into a story about a dragon who breathed bubbles instead of fire. My hand tightened on my wine glass. I had worn that exact dress. I had spilled champagne. I had made up that silly dragon story. But the donor dinner had been private invitation, only no press. How could he know these details unless... I was there, my mother said slowly. At the main event, I mean. I don't remember seeing you. As I said, I was at the smaller dinner. Frankly, I find the large galas tedious. Too much posturing, not enough genuine philanthropy. But that night changed my perspective. Watching Selena work with those children, seeing how they lit up around her, I ended up increasing my donation by a factor of 10. 10 times, Uncle Robert whistled low. That must have been some impression. Your daughter is impressive, Daniel said, simply looking at my parents. I'm surprised you don't mention her achievements more often. Did you know she just secured a partnership with 3 major tech companies for her startup? Or that her literacy program has improved reading scores in participating schools by 32%? My parents exchanged glances. They didn't know. They'd never asked. Well, my mother said, recovering quickly, of course, we're proud of Selena's little projects. Little projects. Daniel's voice remained pleasant, but I caught an edge underneath. Patricia, your daughter is revolutionizing targeted marketing while simultaneously improving childhood literacy rates in underserved communities. She does more meaningful work before breakfast than most people do in a year. An uncomfortable silence fell. My family wasn't used to anyone defending me, least of all a billionaire who looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Madison, never one to tolerate attention on me for too long, shifted tactics. It's just so sudden. 6 months and already talking about marriage. Selena, don't you think you're moving too fast? I mean, after Marcus. She let the name hang in the air like a poison dart. My ex, the one mistake I'd confided in her about. The controlling, manipulative relationship I'd finally escaped. Daniel's hand found mine on the table, covering it protectively. I know about Marcus, he said quietly. Selena told me everything. It takes incredible strength to leave a situation like that. Most people don't understand how insidious emotional manipulation can be, how it erodes your sense of self until you don't trust your own judgment anymore. The table went silent. Even Madison looked taken aback. If anything, Daniel continued, his thumb stroking across my knuckles. I'm grateful to him. His failure taught Selena to recognize her own worth. She knows now what she deserves, what real partnership looks like. Though, if I ever meet him? He let the threat hang unfinished, but his meaning was clear. You told him about Marcus? Madison asked me, incredulous. She'd thought it was ammunition, a shameful secret. The idea that I'd shared it willingly, that someone had responded with support instead of judgment, clearly hadn't occurred to her. Before I could respond, Brad pulled Daniel aside with uncharacteristic urgency. Can I speak with you privately? Business matter. Daniel glanced at me, and I nodded. As they stepped away, I faced my family's stairs alone. Selena Marie Winters, my mother hissed. How could you keep this from us? A man like that. Do you have any idea what this means? It means I'm dating someone, I said carefully. That's all. That's all, Aunt Patricia laughed. Honeymen like Daniel Hawthorne don't just date. They acquire. They invest. They merge. This is a whole different level. He seems to really care about you, Aunt Sheila offered kindly. The way he looks at you. It's the way Brad used to look at me, Madison said sharply, before reality set in, before the long hours and business trips and finding out that success doesn't equal happiness. Something in her tone made me look at her more closely. There was a brittleness to her perfect makeup, a tightness around her eyes I hadn't noticed before. Madison, are you okay? I'm perfect, she snapped. Pregnant with twins, actually. We were going to announce it tonight, but apparently your mysterious billionaire boyfriend stole the spotlight, as usual. As usual, Madison, I've never stolen any spotlight from you. Haven't you? Even now, even at someone else's wedding, you managed to make it about you. Poor single Selena suddenly has a Prince Charming. How convenient. The accusation stung particularly because none of this had been my idea. I was about to respond when Brad returned, his face pale. Daniel followed, his expression unreadable. We should go, Brad said to Madison urgently. Something's come up. What? No, we're not leaving. The cake hasn't even been cut. Madison, please? There was something in Brad's voice I'd never heard before. Fear. Daniel returned to his seat beside me as Brad practically dragged Madison away, her protests fading as they exited. What did you say to him? I whispered. Nothing untrue, Daniel replied quietly. Just reminded him that insider trading leaves digital footprints. He seemed to remember some urgent business elsewhere. My family, sensing drama but not understanding it, slowly dispersed. The band had returned, playing soft jazz as the cake cutting approached. I should have felt relief at their retreat, but instead I felt more unsettled than ever. Daniel, I began, but he held up a hand. I know you have questions. I promise everything will make sense soon. But right now your cousin is about to cut her cake, and your great-aunt is trying to get my attention. I think she's having one of her clear moments. I looked over to see Dorothy indeed beckoning us with surprising urgency. As we approached, her cloudy eyes focused on Daniel with startling clarity. You look just like Anna, she said, reaching out to touch his face with a trembling hand. She had those same gray eyes, like storms over the Atlantic. Daniel knelt beside her chair, taking her frail hands in his. You knew my grandmother. Knew her child, I loved her. We all did. Anna Hawthorne was the brightest light in our dreary debutante world, until she disappeared. One day she was there, the next. Gone. Her family said she'd gone abroad to study, but I knew better. Dorothy's gaze shifted to me. She made me promise, before she left. Said our families would circle back to each other someday. Said love would find a way even if it took generations. Aunt Dorothy, I said gently, I don't understand. But the clarity was already fading from her eyes, confusion creeping back in. Would you like some tea, dear? I think I'll have tea. A waiter appeared as if summoned, and the moment was lost. But Daniel remained kneeling for a long moment, staring at Dorothy as if she'd handed him a missing puzzle piece. And Daniel, I said urgently, what is going on? What promise? He stood slowly, his composure cracking just enough for me to see something raw underneath. Lost hope, I couldn't tell. After the cake, he said. After we've played our parts and given your family their show, then I'll tell you everything. About Anna, about the promise, about why I'm really here. The cake cutting was announced, and we joined the crowd gathering around Amy and Campbell. As cameras flashed and champagne flowed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing at the edge of a much larger story than I'd imagined. Whatever game Daniel Hawthorne was playing, it was bigger than just rescuing me from family humiliation. And somehow, impossibly, it stretched back generations to promises made by women I'd never known existed. The evening was far from over, and I had a feeling the real surprises hadn't even begun. The cake had been cut, the bouquet tossed, and the reception was winding into its final phase when everything began to unravel. I was returning from the ladies' room, having needed a moment to process Dorothy's cryptic words when Brad intercepted me in the hallway. "We need to talk," he said, glancing nervously over his shoulder. His earlier fear had morphed into something desperate. "Brad, whatever Daniel said to you?" "He knows things." Brad's hand shot out, gripping my arm, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to alarm me. Things he couldn't possibly know unless he's been investigating me, investigating all of us. Selena, who is this man? "Let go of me." I kept my voice steady, but my heart was racing. "Yeah, just tell me the truth. Is he really your boyfriend, or is this some kind of corporate espionage? Is he trying to get to me through you?" "Brad, you're being paranoid, and you're hurting me." A hand appeared on Brad's shoulder, and suddenly Daniel was there, having materialized as silently as smoke. His grip looked casual, but Brad winced and released my arm immediately. "I believe Selena asked you to let go," Daniel said pleasantly, though his gray eyes had gone cold as winter storms. "You should listen when women speak. It's a skill that might have saved you considerable trouble." "You don't know anything," Brad blustered, but sweat beaded on his forehead. "I know about the Techron trades," Daniel said quietly. "I know about the information you received from your friend at the SEC. I know about the offshore accounts in the Caymans. Should I continue?" Brad's face went from red to white in seconds. "How?" "The how doesn't matter. What matters is what you do next. You can walk away, now go back to your pregnant wife and start making better choices. Or we can have a more formal conversation with federal investigators present. Your choice." For a moment, Brad looked like he might argue. Then his shoulders slumped. "Madison doesn't know." "Then perhaps you should tell her," Daniel suggested, "before she finds out another way." Brad stumbled away, looking like a man who'd seen his future crumbling. I turned to Daniel, questions burning on my tongue, but he was already guiding me toward a quiet alcove. "Before you ask," he said, "I didn't go looking for information on your family, but when someone runs a background check on me, I get notified. Brad's firm has been investigating me for the past 3 hours. My security team returned the favor." "Your security team?" "Occupational hazard of having money. People always want to find leverage. Usually it's just business rivals or journalists. Sometimes it's the brother-in-law of someone you're trying to help." "Trying to help Daniel. What is this? What are you really doing here?" He studied me for a long moment, and I saw him making a decision. "Come with me. It's time you knew the truth." He led me to a small study off the main hallway, a quiet room lined with books and old wedding photos from the country club's history. Daniel closed the door, muffling the distant music and chatter. From his jacket pocket, he withdrew an envelope, aged and careful, preserved. "This arrived at my office 3 weeks ago. It was among my grandmother's things with instructions to open it only after her death." I took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a letter written in elegant cursive and a black and white photograph of 2 young women, arms linked, laughing at something beyond the camera's view. "Read it," Daniel said softly. The letter was dated 60 years ago. "My dearest Daniel, if you are reading this, Then I am gone, and the time has come for promises to be kept. You will not remember Eleanor Winters. Your paths never cross in life, but she was the other half of my heart in a time when such love had to hide in shadows. We were young, foolish, brave. We thought we could change the world, that our families would accept us, that love would be enough. We were wrong. The world was not ready for two women who loved each other more than they loved conformity. Eleanor married as expected. I fled to Europe, built my fortune, raised your father alone after his father died. But before I left Eleanor and I made a promise. If we could not be together, then perhaps our grandchildren could find what we were denied, not necessarily love, but freedom. The freedom to choose to live authentically, to be supported rather than suppressed. I've watched Eleanor's family from afar all these years. Her granddaughter, Selena, has your spirit, my darling. Brilliant, kind, but trapped by family expectations just as we were. She shines despite them, not because of them. The Morrison-Campbell wedding will be held on June 15th. Selena will attend alone, facing another family gathering where her worth is measured only by her marital status. I know this because I know the Winters family. Their patterns haven't changed in 60 years. Go to her, Daniel, not as a romantic savior. She doesn't need that. Go as a friend and ally, someone who sees her value beyond their narrow definitions. Give her what Eleanor and I could never give each other: unconditional support in the face of family judgment. This is not about matchmaking, my dear one. This is about a debt of love that spans generations. Show her she is not alone. Show her that someone sees her truth and celebrates it. And if you should find something more in the process, well, the heart wants what it wants. Eleanor and I learned that too late. All my love, Anna. My hands shook as I finished reading. The photograph showed two young women who could have been Dorothy and a female version of Daniel. The resemblance was unmistakable. Your grandmother and my great-aunt. I couldn't finish the sentence. We're in love, Daniel completed. In 1964, that kind of love meant conversion therapy, institutionalization, or exile. Anna chose exile. I sank into a leather chair, overwhelmed. So you came here out of what obligation? Some 60-year-old promise between women who couldn't be together. I came here because my grandmother's dying wish was that I help you through one difficult evening. Daniel sat across from me, leaning forward. I expected to make a brief appearance, deflect some criticism, then leave. I didn't expect what? Oh, you, he said simply. I didn't expect to find someone who volunteers at literacy programs and remembers every child's name, who gets promoted on merit despite family that diminishes her achievements, who faces constant criticism with grace and humor. Anna's letter painted a picture, but the reality... This is insane, I whispered. You know that, right? Secret gay grandmother's deathbed promises billionaires showing up to rescue women from family dinners. If I pitched this as a marketing campaign, they'd laugh me out of the room. Daniel's lips quirked. Yet here we are. Here we are, I agreed. Then a thought struck me. Wait, you said Brad was investigating you. That means Madison knows something's off. As if summoned by her name, the door burst open. Madison stood there, mascara-smudged fury radiating from every line of her body. You lying bitch, she snarled at me. Madison, Brad just told me everything. How your boyfriend threatened him, how he somehow knows about private financial information, and I did my own checking. You know what I found? Nothing. No social media posts of you two together. No mentions in any of the society pages I follow. No trail at all until tonight. Madison, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You hired him. You actually hired an escort to this wedding because you couldn't stand being single at another family event. God, Selena, I didn't think even you were this pathetic. That's enough, Daniel said quietly, but Madison whirled on him. How much did she pay you? Must have been a lot to get you to research our whole family, learn all those details. What are you, some kind of high-end gigolo, or just an actor desperate enough to... Madison Michelle Winters Bradley. A new voice cut through her tirade. Our mother stood in the doorway, face pale with rage. You will cease this vulgarity immediately. Mom, don't you see she's lying to all of us? This whole thing is fake. I know exactly what this is, our mother said coldly. I've known for the past hour. My heart sank. Of course she'd figured it out. Patricia Winters hadn't maintained her social position by being naive. However, she continued, what I also know is that your husband is under federal investigation for insider trading, that your perfect marriage has been crumbling for months, that you've been meeting with divorce lawyers since January. Madison's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Did you think I wouldn't find out I have friends at every law firm in the city? So before you stand there calling your sister pathetic, perhaps look at your own glass house. How dare you? How dare I? How dare you? For years I've watched you belittle your sister. Tonight, when someone finally treated her with the respect she deserves, real or performed, you couldn't stand it. You had to tear her down, had to make it about you. You always take her side. Madison exploded. Perfect independent Selena who doesn't need anyone. I have never, not once, taken her side, our mother said quietly. That's the problem. I've spent so long trying to push her into your mold, married, pregnant dependent that I never noticed she'd already surpassed us all. The room went deadly silent. I stared at my mother, wondering if I was having some kind of breakdown. Mr. Hawthorne? She continued, turning to Daniel. I don't know why you're here or what arrangement you have with my daughter. Frankly, I don't care. What I saw tonight was someone who knows Selena's value. Real or not, that's more than her own family has done. She looked at me then, and for the first time in years, I saw tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, Selena. I'm so very sorry. Before anyone could respond, she walked out, leaving Madison, Daniel, and me in shocked silence. Madison sank into a chair, all fight drained from her. Brad's really being investigated. Yes, Daniel said gently. He needs a good lawyer. More importantly, he needs to tell you everything. This is really happening. My husband, my marriage, everything I built. It's all falling apart. I found myself moving to my sister's side, old instincts overriding years of rivalry. Madison, don't. She stood abruptly. Just don't. I can't handle kindness from you right now. Not when I've been so... She didn't finish, just fled the room. Daniel and I sat in the heavy silence. Outside, we could hear the wedding winding down, the band playing final songs. Your mother knew, he asked finally. Apparently, though her reaction wasn't what I expected. Oh, families are complicated, he said carefully. Anna and Eleanor loved each other but couldn't overcome their family's expectations. Maybe your mother sees a chance to break that pattern. Or maybe she's just drunk on wedding champagne, I said, but without heat. Something fundamental had shifted tonight, tectonic plates of family dynamics rearranging themselves. There's more, Daniel said quietly. The letter Anna's research into your family. There are other documents, other revelations, but they can wait. Can they? Because I feel like I'm drowning in revelations already. He moved to sit beside me, close but not touching. What do you want, Selena? Forget the letter, the promise, your family. What do you want? I laughed, but it came out cracked. I don't know. For the first time in my life, I honestly don't know. I thought I wanted their approval, then I thought I wanted to escape them. Now I want to know more about Anna and Eleanor. I want to understand how you know so much about me. I stopped, afraid to voice the rest. Say it, he urged gently. I want to know if any of what happened tonight was real. The dance, the toast, the way you defended me. Was any of it genuine, or was it all just fulfilling a promise? Daniel was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he reached out, taking my hand carefully, giving me time to pull away. The promise brought me here, he said. But everything else, The way I felt when I saw you standing alone, proud despite their judgment, the anger when they dismissed your achievements, the need to make them see what I saw. That was all real. Selena, that was all me. A knock interrupted whatever I might have said. Amy peered in, still radiant in her wedding dress. There you are, I've been looking everywhere. We're about to leave for the honeymoon, but I wanted to thank you both. Thank us? I asked, confused. For the entertainment, she grinned. Best wedding drama ever. Madison's meltdown, your mother's revelation, a mysterious billionaire. The guests will be talking about this for years. Amy, I'm so sorry. This was your day and we made it unforgettable, she finished. Honestly, Selena Campbell's family is so boring. This was exactly the excitement we needed. Plus, her expression softened. It's about time someone stood up to Madison and your mom, even if it took a fake boyfriend to do it. Actually, Daniel interjected smoothly, that's still being determined. Amy's eyes widened. Oh my God, are you saying? We're saying it's complicated, I said quickly. Really, really complicated. The best things always are, Amy said knowingly. Just promise me, if you do get married, I'm invited. I want to see Madison's face when it's real. She hugged us both and swept out, leaving us alone again. We should go, I said finally. Face whatever's left out there. Together. I looked at this man who'd upended my entire life in one evening, who'd come because of a decades-old love story and stayed for... what? For me? Together, I agreed. As we walked back to the reception, I couldn't shake the feeling that the evening's surprises weren't over. There were still hours left, still secrets to uncover, still truths to face. But for the first time all night, I wasn't facing them alone. The reception hall had taken on that peculiar energy of a wedding winding down, clusters of remaining guests nursing final drinks, the band packing up waitstaff beginning to clear centerpieces. But the atmosphere shifted palpably when Daniel and I re-entered. Conversations paused, heads turned, and I could practically see the whisper network activating. We'd barely made it 3 steps when my grandmother Eleanor appeared before us, more alert than I'd seen her in years. Her usual caregiver, Nancy, hovered nearby, looking concerned. Mrs. Winters insisted on waiting for you, Nancy explained apologetically. She's been quite agitated. It's all right, I assured her, though my grandmother's intense focus on Daniel made me uneasy. Grandma, why don't we sit? Anna's boy. Eleanor interrupted, her voice stronger than her frail frame suggested. She reached out, grasping Daniel's hands with surprising strength. I knew you'd come. She promised you would. Mrs. Winters, Daniel said gently, not correcting her assumption about his gender or age. What did Anna promise? Eleanor's eyes, usually clouded with confusion, held a startling clarity. That our families would find their way back to each other. That the love we couldn't have wouldn't die with us. She turned to me, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. Selena, my brave girl, do you know what we gave up? What we lost? Grandma, I don't understand. The letters, she said, urgently gripping my hands now. In my jewelry box, the false bottom. I saved them all. 60 years of letters she sent to my friend Martha, who passed them to me in secret. Anna wrote every week, even when I stopped responding. Even when I chose safety over love. My mother appeared at Eleanor's shoulder, her earlier composure cracking. Mother, what are you talking about? What letters? Eleanor looked at her daughter with something like pity. The ones I should have shown you years ago. The ones that might have taught you that love comes in forms you don't expect. Her gaze returned to me. Don't make my mistakes, darling. When someone sees your true self and celebrates it, you hold on. You don't let fear win. I think we should get her home, Nancy suggested gently. This much excitement isn't good for her. As Nancy led Eleanor away, my grandmother called back one more time. The blue box, Selena. Everything's in the blue box. The remaining guests pretended not to stare as we stood there processing Eleanor's words. My mother looked shaken. Madison was nowhere to be seen, and my father had appeared at my mother's elbow, silently supportive in a way I rarely saw. "I think," Daniel said quietly, "we need to see those letters." "You knew," I said, not quite an accusation. "When you showed me Anna's letter, you knew Eleanor had kept correspondence too." I suspected. Anna mentioned in her letter that she wrote every week for 60 years. Those letters had to go somewhere. "This is about more than just one evening of family drama," I said, the full weight of realization hitting me. "This is about their entire lives, their whole story." "Their story, yes, but also ours." He met my gaze steadily. "Whatever we decide to do with it." My father cleared his throat. "The country club is closing soon. Perhaps we should continue this at the house?" I stared at him. My father, who usually avoided family drama like it was contagious, was actually suggesting we dive deeper. "Richard," my mother said warningly. "Patricia, our mothers loved each other." His voice was quiet but firm. "Don't you think it's time we stopped pretending that some things matter more than others? Look at our daughters. Look at what our priorities have done to them." It was the longest speech I'd heard from him in years. 20 minutes later, we caravanned to my parents' house in Bethesda, my parents in their Lexus, Daniel and me in his Bentley, and surprisingly, Madison and Brad following in their Tesla. The ride was quiet, except for the GPS's polite directions, both of us processing the evening's revelations. "You don't have to come in to tea," I offered as we pulled into the circular driveway. "You've already done more than Anna's letter asked." "Selena," he said, turning off the engine, "I'm not here because of a letter anymore. Haven't been since about 5 minutes after I met you. I'm here because I want to be. Because this story, your grandmother's, mine, ours, deserves to be fully told." Inside my childhood home felt different, like seeing it through a stranger's eyes. The formal living room where we'd held countless stilted holiday gatherings, the family photos marching up the staircase in perfect chronological order. Everything precisely placed to project success and stability. Eleanor lived in the mother-in-law suite on the first floor, a concession to her advancing age and dementia. With Nancy's help, she was settled in her chair, already drifting back into confusion, but clutching my hand with residual urgency. "The jewelry box is in her closet," Nancy said. "The blue one, but I don't know anything about a false bottom." I found it on the top shelf, an ornate Victorian box that had sat there my entire life, without my giving it a second thought. It was heavier than expected, and when I examined it closely, I could see the tiny seam Nancy had missed. "Oh, but here," Daniel said, showing me a small catch hidden in the carved roses. "Victorian secret compartments. Anna had one just like it." The false bottom opened to reveal a treasure trove of history, dozens of letters tied in faded ribbons, photographs, a pressed flower that crumbled at my touch, and a small leather journal. Madison, who'd been silent since arriving, gasped softly. "There must be hundreds of them." 3,120, Eleanor said clearly, startling us all. "One for every week she was gone." I counted them. Counted what I gave up. We spread the letters carefully on the dining room table. They were organized by year starting in 1964. Anna's handwriting was elegant, measured, but the words, "My dearest Eleanor," I read from the first letter, "I write this from the ship taking me away from you, and already I wonder if I've made the greatest mistake of my life. But your safety, your future with your family intact, that must matter more than my selfish desire to keep you with me. I will love you across oceans, across years, across lifetimes if necessary." "Oh my God," Madison whispered. "They were really in love." "Of course they were," Eleanor said impatiently. "You don't give up everything for anything less." She looked at Daniel. "Your grandmother was the bravest woman I ever knew. She asked me to come with her. Said we could build a life in Paris, be free. But I was a coward. I chose the easy path marriage to a kind man who never knew he was my second choice children, who grew up thinking love looked like tolerance, a life that was safe but never truly mine. My mother made a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. Mama, why didn't you ever tell us? Because by the time you were old enough to understand, I'd buried that part of myself so deep I almost believed it hadn't existed. It was Dorothy who kept me honest. She knew, you see. She helped pass the letters. She was the only one who remembered Anna as more than just a friend who moved away. Daniel had been reading from another bundle. "These later ones," he said quietly, "they're about you." He looked at me. "Both of you. Anna wrote about following your lives from a distance. She has newspaper clippings, birth announcements, school achievements, your college graduation, Madison's wedding announcement." "That's creepy," Madison suggested weakly. "That's love," Eleanor corrected. "She couldn't be part of our lives, but she never stopped caring, never stopped hoping that someday." She trailed off, looking at Daniel and me with eyes that held 6 decades of regret. "The journal," my father said suddenly. "What's in the journal?" I opened it carefully. It wasn't Anna's writing, it was Eleanor's. "I started it after Anna left," Eleanor explained. "Every time I wanted to write back but couldn't. Every time I chose safety over truth. Every time I taught my children that conformity mattered more than authenticity. The entries were heartbreaking, dreams of a different life, moments of near courage when she almost bought a plane ticket to Paris, the day she heard Anna had adopted a baby boy alone, the day Anna's husband, a marriage of convenience that lasted barely 2 years, died, and throughout a love that never dimmed despite the distance. 1995. I read aloud. "Patricia told me today that she's worried Selena will never marry, that she's too independent, too focused on her career. I wanted to tell her that marriage isn't the only path to happiness, that I'd trade every safe year of my marriage for one authentic day with Anna, but I stayed silent the way I always do. I'm failing my granddaughter the way I failed myself." "Mama," my mother said again, but no other words came. "There's more," Daniel said, pulling out a legal document from the bottom of the box. "This is a will, Anna's original will from 20 years ago." He read it silently, his face changing. "She left everything to Eleanor, but there's a note saying she knew Eleanor would never claim it, so she made other arrangements. The final version left most to charity and family, but she set aside a trust." For Selena," Eleanor finished. "She told me in the last letter, said if she couldn't give me freedom, maybe she could give it to my granddaughter. Said no woman should have to choose between love and security." The room went silent, except for the ticking of the grandfather clock. "That's why you knew so much about me," I said to Daniel. "Anna had been watching my whole life." "Not watching," he corrected gently, "caring from a distance. When she died, I found boxes of information, not surveillance, newspaper clippings, publicly available information, social media posts your mother made. She was so proud of you, Selena. The way you built your own life despite family pressure, the way you refused to settle. She saw herself in you, but braver." "This is all too much," Madison said, but she was crying. "Our whole family is built on a lie." "Not a lie," Eleanor said firmly, "a sacrifice. Right or wrong, I gave up my chance at authentic love so you could have stable childhoods, social standing opportunities. But I see now that I also taught you that those things mattered more than being true to yourself. That's the real tragedy." Brad, who'd been silent through everything, finally spoke. "So what happens now? What do we do with all this history?" It was a good question. The letters, the story, the trust, it all felt too big to process in one evening. "Now," Daniel said, looking at me, "we decide what to do with the chances they never took." But before anyone could respond, the doorbell rang. At nearly midnight, we all froze. "I'll get it," my father said, but Daniel was already moving. Let me, he said quietly. I have a feeling I know who this is. He opened the door to reveal a stylish woman in her 60s, silver hair perfectly coiffed despite the late hour. Aunt Vivian, Daniel said, clearly surprised. What are you doing here? Making sure you finish what Anna started, she said, briskly sweeping into the house like she owned it. Hello, Eleanor. It's been far too long. My grandmother's face transformed. Vivian, Anna's sister. The very same. And I have some things to say that are 60 years overdue. The night, it seemed, wasn't done with surprises yet. Vivian Hawthorne commanded attention the way some people breathed naturally and without effort. She swept into my parents' living room, her presence immediately shifting the dynamic. Despite being in her 60s, she moved with the energy of someone half her age, her sharp blue eyes taking in everything at once. Eleanor, she said, settling into a chair as if she'd been invited for tea rather than arriving unannounced at midnight. You look well, all things considered. My grandmother studied her with eyes that seemed to sharpen by the second. You haven't aged a day. Still terrifying, I see. Someone had to be, Vivian replied crisply, especially after you broke my sister's heart. The room collectively held its breath. Wom's Aunt Vivian, Daniel warned, but she waved him off. No, Daniel, we've all been polite for 60 years and look where it's gotten us. Dead lovers, wasted lives, and children raised on lies. She turned her laser focus on my mother. You must be Patricia. You have your grandmother's spine, I see, the same one that bent under social pressure. How dare you come into my home? My mother began, but Vivian cut her off. I dare because Anna can't, because she spent 60 years loving a woman who chose safety over her. Because she died 2 months ago, still wearing the ring Eleanor gave her in secret when they were 22. She pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a simple gold band with an inscription too small to read from where I sat. Eleanor made a sound like she'd been punched. She kept it. She never took it off. Told everyone who asked that it was from her late husband, the one she married for appearances and divorced 2 years later. But I knew better. We all did. All her, I asked, finding my voice. Vivian's attention shifted to me, and I felt like I was being X-rayed. Anna wasn't as alone as Eleanor might think. There was a whole community of us women who loved women. Men who loved men. People who didn't fit the neat boxes society demanded. We built lives in the shadows, but lives nonetheless. Anna thrived there, built an empire, actually. She just never stopped wishing Eleanor had been brave enough to join her. That's not fair, my father said unexpectedly. Mother had responsibilities, a family depending on her. A family she never should have had to have, Vivian interrupted. Do you think Anna wanted less? Do you think she didn't dream of children, stability, acceptance? She just refused to purchase them with a lie? Eleanor was crying silently, tears sliding down her cheeks as she clutched the letter in her hands. I was 23, she whispered. My parents threatened to disown me, to ruin me. In 1964, that meant something. It meant never working again, never seeing my siblings being erased from existence. I know, Vivian said, her voice gentling slightly. Anna knew, too. That's why she left, to protect you from having to choose. But Eleanor, you chose anyway. You chose every day for 60 years. Why are you here? Daniel asked. Why now? Vivian reached into her bag and pulled out a thick manila envelope. Because Anna made me promise. If you found each other, she gestured between Daniel and me, then I was to deliver this, her final letter, the one she wrote the week before she died. My hands shook as I took the envelope. Inside was a letter in Anna's handwriting, but shakier than the earlier ones marked by age and illness. Read it aloud. Eleanor commanded, her voice stronger than it had been all evening. Whatever she said, we all need to hear it. I cleared my throat and began. My dearest ones, if you are reading this, then the impossible has happened. Daniel and Selena have found each other, and perhaps, just perhaps, the universe is offering a second chance at the love Eleanor and I were too frightened and too constrained to fully embrace. I do not write this in bitterness. Eleanor made the only choice she could in 1964, and I made mine. We were victims of our time, our families, our own fears. But you live in a different world. Not perfect, but better. A world where love might be difficult, but not impossible. Daniel, my brilliant boy, you have built kingdoms from code and dreams, but you have built them alone. You are my greatest joy and my deepest regret that I raised you to be so self-sufficient you forgot how to need anyone. Selena, though we've never met, I know you through Eleanor's genes and Patricia's Facebook posts. Yes, even old ladies learn social media. You have Eleanor's strength, but also her fear not of society's judgment, but of being truly seen. You succeed to prove your worth, but darling, you were worthy the moment you drew breath. If you are reading this together, then know this: I am not asking you to fall in love. Love cannot be willed or inherited or obligated into existence. I am asking you to be brave enough to see each other clearly, to support each other fiercely, to build the kind of partnership Eleanor and I could only dream of. But there is more to tell. Vivian holds the rest. The parts of our story even Eleanor doesn't know. The child I lost. The years I spent searching for a way back. The fortune I built not for its own sake, but so that no woman in our family would ever have to choose between love and security again. Be brave, my darlings. Be so much braver than we were. All my love across time and space, Anna. The silence that followed was deafening. Madison was openly sobbing. Brad looked lost. My parents clung to each other, and Eleanor looked like she'd been shattered and rebuilt in the space of a single letter. A child, she whispered. Anna lost a child. Vivian nodded grimly. 1968, a daughter, stillborn. The father was that sham husband, but Anna, she wanted that baby to be yours, Eleanor. She wrote to you about it, but I burned the letter. I thought it would be too cruel knowing you were pregnant with Patricia at the time. My mother gasped. I was born in 68. 2 months after Anna's loss, Vivian confirmed. She used to say the universe was mocking her, giving you the child she couldn't have. God, Eleanor breathed, if I had known. Would it have changed anything? Vivian asked, not unkindly. You had a husband, a child, a life. Anna understood that. She just never stopped loving you despite it. Daniel had been uncharacteristically quiet, studying another document from the envelope. There's a deed here, he said slowly, to a house in Provincetown. Vivian smiled for the first time. The house Anna bought in 75. She said if Eleanor ever changed her mind, ever decided to run, that's where she'd be waiting. She kept it maintained, visited every summer. It's yours now, Selena? Both of yours, actually. Joint ownership. I can't accept that, I said immediately. You can and you will, Vivian said firmly. It's not charity, it's justice. 60 years of love has to go somewhere, and Anna chose you two to receive it. But we're not. I glanced at Daniel, unsure how to finish. We weren't what together in love, real. You're not Anna and Eleanor, Vivian agreed. Thank God for that. But you're something, aren't you? Even if you don't know what yet. Madison, who'd been silent for too long, suddenly stood. This is insane. Our whole family history is a lie. Grandma was in love with a woman. There are secret houses and trusts and 60 years of letters. And now Selena's inheriting some beach house with a fake boyfriend who might not be fake. I need air. She headed for the door, but Brad didn't follow. Madison, wait. No, Brad, I can't do this tonight. I just found out my perfect family is built on repression and lies, and, oh, by the way, my husband might be going to federal prison. I'm done. The door slammed behind her. Should someone... My mother began, but Eleanor cut her off. Let her go. She needs to process. We all do. She looked at Vivian. Is there more? Or have we aired enough family secrets for one evening? There's always more, Vivian said, but the rest can wait, except for this. She pulled out one final document. Anna's company, she left majority control to Daniel, of course, but there's a board seat with Selena's name on it, if she wants it. Why, I asked, overwhelmed. I didn't even know her. Because you're Eleanor's granddaughter, because you're brilliant in your own right, because Anna believed in investing in women's futures. Pick your reason. This is too much, I said, standing abruptly. I can't. Daniel rose too. Let's get some air. Everyone needs time to process. We escaped to the back patio, the June night warm and thick with humidity. I could hear the distant sound of the Potomac, the same river that had witnessed countless society gatherings, where Anna and Eleanor had to pretend to be just friends. Your aunt is intense, overbearing, absolutely right about everything, Daniel supplied. Yes to all of the above. She helped raise me after my parents died. Anna was the dreamer, but Vivian was the force that made those dreams reality. A board seat, I said, still processing, at a company I know nothing about. You'd learn. You're brilliant. Remember, Anna saw it? I see it. The only one who doesn't is you. I turned to face him. Is that what this is? Some elaborate therapy session designed by dead women to fix their descendants' issues. Maybe it started that way, he admitted, but Selena, I meant what I said earlier. Everything I feel, the attraction, the admiration, the desire to know you better, that's all real. That's all me. We met 6 hours ago. Our grandmothers fell in love in 6 minutes. At least we're being more cautious. Despite everything, I laughed. This is insane. Completely, he agreed. So what do we do about it? Before I could answer, the patio door opened. My father stood there looking older than I'd ever seen him. Your mother's taken Eleanor to bed. I think we all need some time to adjust to everything we learned tonight. He paused, studying us. But for what it's worth, I'm glad Anna sent you Daniel. Watching you two tonight, seeing how you defended Selena, how you worked together. Maybe some good can come from all these old secrets. He went back inside, leaving us alone again. I should go, Daniel said. It's late and your family needs space to process. But Selena, this doesn't have to end tonight. The house in Provincetown, the board seat us, we can take it all as slowly as you need. What if I don't know what I need? Then we figure it out together. If you want. He pulled out his phone. May I have your number? Your real one. Not the one I had to memorize for the performance. I gave it to him watching as he saved it carefully. For what it's worth, I said as he turned to go, tonight was, despite everything, or maybe because of it, thank you for showing up, for the truth, for making me feel valuable when my family couldn't. He smiled, and it reached those storm-gray eyes. You've always been valuable, Selena. I just held up a mirror. After he left, I stood on the patio for a long time, thinking about chances taken and missed, about love that survived 60 years of separation, about 2 women who'd given up everything, so their descendants could have choices they never did. Inside, I could hear my mother crying, my father's low voice comforting her. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more revelations, more decisions to make. But tonight I'd learned that my family's perfect facade had hidden a love story more beautiful and tragic than any fiction. And somehow, in the middle of all that history, I might have found the beginning of my own story, one where I didn't have to choose between success and love, between authenticity and acceptance, between being valued and being alone. Anna and Eleanor never got their happy ending, but maybe Daniel and I could write a different story. I pulled out my phone to find a text already waiting. Thank you for letting me play your boyfriend tonight. If you ever need someone to play that role for real, I'm available. D. For the first time in hours, I smiled without complication. Whatever came next, at least I wouldn't be facing it alone. The next morning arrived too soon, heralded by insistent knocking on my apartment door. I'd barely slept, spending hours reading through Anna's letters, each one a window into a love that had endured decades of separation. My coffee was still brewing when I opened the door to find Madison looking worse than I'd ever seen her. Her usually perfect makeup was smeared, her designer clothes wrinkled, and she clutched a gas station coffee cup like a lifeline. "I've been driving around all night," she said without preamble. "Brad's at his mother's. I can't go home. Can I come in?" "Of course," I said, stepping aside. It was the first time she'd been to my Georgetown apartment since I'd moved in 2 years ago. She looked around, taking in the exposed brick, the wall of books, the artwork I'd collected from local artists. "This is nice," she said, surprise evident. "Really nice. Not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Something temporary, I guess. Like you were just marking time until real life began." She sank onto my couch. "God, I'm such a bitch." I sat across from her, unsure how to navigate this unprecedented vulnerability. "Madison, what happened with Brad?" "Everything. Nothing. Things that have been happening for months that I pretended not to see." She laughed bitterly. "You know what the ironic part is? I've been meeting with divorce lawyers since January. But I couldn't admit, it couldn't face being the first divorce in the family, so I got pregnant instead. Madison, with twins. Because apparently I can't even fail at marriage without overachieving." She started crying ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "Do you know why I've been so horrible to you? Why I've spent years making you feel worthless for being single?" I handed her tissues, waiting. "Because you were free," she said. "You were building this whole life, career, apartment, friends, actual happiness, while I was trapped in a marriage that looked perfect but felt like prison. And instead of admitting I'd made a mistake, I tried to drag you into the same trap. Why didn't you ever talk to me?" "Are you kidding? Perfect Madison? Admit she wasn't perfect? That my Harvard MBA husband was cheating? That my beautiful house felt empty? That I cried in my car after every family dinner because I was jealous of your freedom?" She wiped her eyes. "It was easier to make you feel bad about being single than admit I was miserable being married." And the insider trading, I knew something was off. The late nights, the secret accounts, the way he'd panic when his phone rang. But I thought it was an affair. Honestly, federal investigation feels worse. At least with an affair, it's just our marriage that's ruined. This could ruin everything. We sat in silence while she composed herself. Finally, she asked, "Is it real, you and Daniel?" "I don't know," I admitted. "It started as him rescuing me from family judgment, but there's something there, or could be. The way he looked at you, Brad never looked at me that way, not even in the beginning." She pulled out her phone, showing me a photo. It was from the reception, Daniel and me dancing, completely absorbed in each other. "Amy sent this to everyone. You can't fake that kind of connection." "Our grandmothers fell in love in the 1960s, I said. "Anna loved Eleanor for 60 years despite never being with her. Daniel came to that wedding because of a promise between women who couldn't be together. What if we're just trying to fix their story?" "So what if you are Madison challenged? Would that be so bad, getting a chance they never had?" "When did you become a romantic?" "About 3 hours into my all-night drive somewhere around Annapolis." She managed a weak smile. "Can I stay here for a few days, just until I figure out what to do?" "Of course." My phone buzzed. Daniel's name appeared on the screen. "Good morning. I hope you got some sleep. Would you like to see the Provincetown house this weekend? No pressure, just thought you might want to know what Anna left you. Also, Vivian would like to apologize for her dramatic entrance." I told her that was like apologizing for breathing, but she insisted. Madison read over my shoulder. "He texts with proper punctuation. That's either adorable or psychotic. Coming from the woman who color codes her label maker, that's rich." Fair point." She curled up on the couch. "So are you going to go to Provincetown? I don't know. It feels fast." "Selena, our grandmother, spent 60 years moving too slow. Maybe fast isn't the worst thing." Before I could respond, my phone rang. Mom. Selena, you need to come to the house, now. Is Grandma okay? She's she's clear, completely clear. She woke up this morning knowing everything, remembering everything. The doctors can't explain it. She's asking for you and for Daniel. Madison and I exchanged glances. We'll be right there. The drive to Bethesda was surreal. Madison filled me in on her night of soul searching, including a stop at the Lincoln Memorial at 3 a.m., where she'd apparently had an existential crisis about her entire life. Do you think that's what killed them? She asked as we sat in traffic. Anna and Eleanor living lives that weren't really theirs. Anna built an empire. She seemed to live authentically, just incomplete. And Eleanor got the family the respectability, the safety. But at what cost? Madison touched her stomach. I don't want to raise these babies in a lie. They deserve better than that. When we arrived at our parents' house, we found organized chaos. Eleanor was in the living room, dressed and fully present in a way she hadn't been in years. She was surrounded by letters, photographs, and documents, my mother and Vivian helping her sort through decades of hidden history. Selena. Eleanor's voice was clear and strong. And Madison. Good. We need all the women here for this. Mother, you should rest, my mom protested. This much activity. Patricia, I've rested for 60 years. No more. She looked at me. Did Daniel come? I haven't asked him. Ask him. This concerns him too. She turned to Vivian. Tell them about Paris. Vivian, looking slightly less imposing in daylight but no less formidable, pulled out a leather journal. 1973. Anna had built her first company, sold it for what would be about $10 million in today's money. She went to Paris for the anniversary of when she and Eleanor were supposed to run away together. And Eleanor? I went too, Eleanor said quietly. I told Richard I was visiting my sister in Boston. Instead, I flew to Paris. For 1 week, we lived the life we should have had. The room went silent. You saw her again, my mother whispered. You never said. How could I? I came back to my family, my life. But for 7 days, I remembered who I really was. We stayed in a little apartment in Montmartre, walked along the Seine, sat in cafes and talked about everything and nothing, made love like the 20 years apart had been 20 minutes. My very proper grandmother talking about making love made everyone shift uncomfortably, but she didn't care. Anna begged me to stay, said she had enough money for us both that we could disappear, start over. But I had you. She looked at my mother and your father, who was a good man who didn't deserve abandonment. So I left. Again. That's when she bought the Provincetown house, Vivian added. Said if Eleanor couldn't come to Paris, she'd build Paris on Cape Cod. Spent every summer there waiting, though. She waited 40 years, Madison asked, voice small. She waited until she died, Eleanor corrected. I know because I checked. Every summer I'd call the local inn, ask if the Frenchwoman was in residence. She always was, alone. I texted Daniel asking him to come. His response was immediate. On my way. While we waited, Eleanor continued sorting through memories made tangible. Birth announcements, school photos, newspaper clippings, an entire life documented from afar. This one, Eleanor held up a photo of me at my college graduation. She was there, in the crowd. I saw her but convinced myself I was imagining things. But look. She pointed to a figure in the background, elegant and solitary. She came to see you graduate. Why didn't she approach us? I asked, studying the photo. Because I asked her not to, Eleanor admitted. In my last letter in 1990, I said if she loved me, she'd let my family be normal, let my granddaughters grow up without scandal. God, what a fool I was. As if normal was worth anything. Daniel arrived as we were deep in photographic evidence of Anna's distant devotion. He'd brought coffee and pastries, earning Madison's eternal gratitude. My grandmother documented everything, he said, settling beside me. I used to think it was obsessive. Now I understand she was holding on to the only pieces of Eleanor she could have. Tell them about the paintings, Vivian prompted. Paintings? I asked. Daniel pulled out his phone, scrolling through images. Anna commissioned paintings every year, always of the same subject, the view from a park bench in D.C. where she and Eleanor used to meet. 23 paintings, total one for each year they were together and apart. The paintings were beautiful, showing the same scene through seasons and years, sometimes sunny, sometimes in rain or snow, always empty of people, always waiting. She left them to you, he told Eleanor. They're in storage, but they're yours whenever you want them. Eleanor touched the phone screen gently. Our bench. Is it still there? Yes, Daniel said. I checked yesterday. I want to go, Eleanor announced. Now, today. I want to sit where we sat and tell her I'm sorry. Mother, you're 90, my mom protested. Which means I don't have time to waste. Patricia, your father's been gone 10 years. I mourned him appropriately, but I won't pretend anymore that he was my great love. That honor belongs to Anna, and I won't die without acknowledging it. Within an hour, our strange procession made its way to Meridian Hill Park. Eleanor, despite her age, walked steadily to a bench overlooking the cascading fountain. She sat carefully, hands folded, eyes closed. We met here in 1962, she said. A mutual friend's picnic. Anna wore a yellow dress that made her look like sunshine. She sat right where you are, Daniel, and told me my hat was ridiculous. No one had ever spoken to me like that honestly, without calculation. I fell in love before she finished insulting my accessories. She was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, my darling, she whispered to the air. I'm so very sorry I wasn't brave enough to choose us. When she opened her eyes, they were clear but sad. Now then, she said briskly, about this house in Provincetown. You two should go this weekend. See what Anna built for the life we never had. Eleanor, I began, but she cut me off. No arguments. I spent 60 years arguing myself out of happiness. You won't repeat my mistakes. She looked between Daniel and me. Whatever this is or isn't, whatever it becomes or doesn't, you'll explore it honestly. Promise me. I promise, I said, surprising myself. Good. Now take me home. This much truth is exhausting and I want to read more letters. As we walked back to the cars, Madison fell into step beside me. So you're going to Provincetown? Apparently. With your maybe real boyfriend to see a house built by your grandmother's secret lover? When you put it like that, it sounds insane. Everything about the last 24 hours has been insane. She paused. I'm getting divorced. I decided on the way here. Brad and I, we're just another version of Grandma and Grandpa. A marriage that looks right but feels wrong. These babies deserve better. What will Mom say? Honestly, I think she'll be relieved. Did you see her face when Grandma talked about Anna? I think she's reconsidering everything she taught us about what matters. We reached the cars where Daniel was helping Eleanor into my parents' vehicle. He caught my eye and smiled, and I felt that same flutter from the night before. Provincetown, I said when he approached. This weekend? If you're ready, no pressure. I'm ready, I decided, for whatever this is. Madison squeezed my hand. Finally, she said, one of us is. As we drove away, I looked back at the bench where two young women had fallen in love 60 years ago. They'd lost their chance at happiness, but maybe that didn't mean we had to lose ours. The truth was still unraveling, pulling apart decades of carefully constructed lies. But sometimes I was learning the truth was worth the mess it made. Friday morning arrived with the kind of perfect June weather that made everything feel possible. I was packing for Provincetown, second-guessing every clothing choice when my phone exploded with notifications. 47 text messages, 12 missed calls, and my Instagram followers had tripled overnight. What the? I opened the first message from a college friend. OMG, is this you? Who is he? Attached was a link to a gossip blog. The headline made my stomach drop. Billionaire bachelor Daniel Hawthorne's secret romance. Meet the woman who captured the eligible CEO's heart. The article was accompanied by photos from Amy's wedding, Daniel and me dancing the kiss on my hand, the intimate whispers during dinner. Someone had done their research too. They'd found my LinkedIn, my company bio, even my volunteer work at the hospital. My phone rang. Daniel. "I'm so sorry," he said immediately. "I just saw. My PR team is working on it, but how did they find out?" "Wedding guest with a social media following, best guess. Someone recognized me, posted about it, and..." He sighed. "This is what I was trying to avoid by keeping a low profile. Selena, I understand if you want to cancel Provincetown." "No," I said, surprising myself with the firmness. "No, we're going. I'm not letting gossip blogs dictate my life." "You might want to check with your family first. The article mentions them." With dread, I scrolled further. There it was. Sources at the wedding report: Hawthorne was introduced as Winter's boyfriend of 6 months, with talks of a spring wedding in Tuscany. The whirlwind romance has reportedly caused tension with Winters' sister, Madison Bradley, wife of Bradley Investments CEO. "Oh no. I've got security heading to your building, Daniel said, "just in case any photographers show up. And Selena, whatever happens, we'll handle it together." I'd barely hung up when Madison burst through my door using the spare key I'd given her. "Have you seen..." "Yes." "They mentioned Brad. They mentioned the company. Do you know what this means?" She wasn't angry, just panicked. The investigation was supposed to be quiet. If this draws attention... My phone rang again. "Mom." "Selena Marie Winters, there are photographers at my house." "At my house? Your father can't get the car out of the driveway." "Mom, I'm sorry I didn't know." "Don't apologize. Just tell me, is it true? Are you and Daniel together?" "It's complicated." "Life is complicated, darling, but that young man defended you to your family and made you smile like I haven't seen in years. That seems simple enough." Her voice softened. "Your grandmother wants to speak to you." Eleanor's voice came on clear and amused. "My dear, you've caused quite the sensation. Good for you." "Grandma, this is a disaster." "Is it? You're living openly, being seen with someone who values you. Anna would be thrilled. She always said visibility was its own form of courage." "But the family..." "Will survive. We've survived worse secrets than a handsome man falling for you." She paused. "He is falling for you, isn't he?" I think so." "Then go to Provincetown. See what Anna built. Let the gossips gossip. At my age, I've learned that the only opinions that matter are from people who love you enough to tell you the truth." After she hung up, I found Madison stress baking in my kitchen, her favorite coping mechanism. "I made 3 dozen muffins," she announced. "Want to tell me why you're not freaking out more?" "Because for once, I don't care what people think." I grabbed a still warm muffin. "My whole life, I've tried to control the narrative. Keep quiet, be successful, but not too successful. Date appropriate men who bored me senseless. And where did it get me? Sitting alone at wedding singles tables while my family pitied me. So you're choosing chaos instead." "I'm choosing possibility." My phone buzzed. Another text from Daniel. "Car will be there in an hour. Pack warm clothes. Cape Cod evenings are cool, and maybe something nice for dinner. There's a place Anna loved." Madison read over my shoulder again. "He's taking you to his dead grandmother's favorite restaurant. That's either deeply romantic or deeply weird." Everything about this is deeply weird. I headed to my bedroom to finish packing. "Are you going to be okay here?" "I'll be fine. I have muffins and your Netflix password. Go have your adventure." An hour later, a discreet black SUV pulled up outside. The driver efficiently loaded my bags while I slipped out, grateful for the tinted windows. We drove to a private aviation terminal where Daniel waited beside a small jet. "You have a plane," I said flatly. "The company has a plane," he corrected, "which I'm using for personal reasons which Vivian will lecture me about later." He looked uncertain. "Too much we can drive if you prefer." "No, it's just... This morning I was worried about what clothes to pack, and now I'm boarding a private jet. It's an adjustment." Selena, I know this is overwhelming. The media attention, the family revelations us. If you want to slow down." I spent my whole life going slow, I interrupted, being careful, being appropriate. Our grandmothers lost 60 years being careful, so no, I don't want to slow down. His smile was worth the chaos of the morning. Then let's go see what Anna built for Eleanor. The flight was smooth and blessedly short. Daniel spent most of it on his phone managing the media situation with quiet efficiency. I watched him work, noting the way he commanded respect without raising his voice, how he protected my privacy while navigating the public interest. "You're good at this," I observed. "Years of practice. The trick is controlling the narrative without looking like you're controlling it." He put his phone away. "Though, I have to admit, secret romance is a new one. Usually it's merger speculation or tax-dodging accusations. Sorry to add to your complications." "You're not a complication, Selena. He paused, seeming to weigh his words. "You're the first real thing to happen to me in years." Before I could respond, the pilot announced our descent into Provincetown. The house stood on a bluff overlooking Cape Cod Bay, a stunning Victorian painted in soft blues and whites. It was both grand and intimate, with wraparound porches and gardens that looked wild but were clearly carefully maintained. "She designed it herself," Daniel said as we walked up the crushed shell driveway. "Every detail was chosen with Eleanor in mind. The blue was Eleanor's favorite color. The gardens are full of flowers mentioned in their letters. There's even a library with first editions of every book they discussed." Inside the house was a love letter frozen in time. Photographs of Paris lined the walls, not tourist shots, but intimate glimpses of cafes and corners where Anna had imagined bringing Eleanor. The furniture was elegant, but comfortable, chosen for living rather than showing. "She came here every summer?" I asked, running my hand along a bookshelf. "June through August like clockwork. The caretaker says she'd spend her days writing, walking the beach, tending the garden, waiting." God, that's heartbreaking. Is it, or is it beautiful, loving someone that constantly, that faithfully? We climbed to the master bedroom where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the bay. On the dresser sat a silver-framed photo, Anna and Eleanor at maybe 25, laughing at something off-camera, completely absorbed in each other. "That's from Paris," Daniel said. "Their week together. Vivian found it in Anna's safe." I studied the photo, seeing echoes of Eleanor in the young woman's face, but also a joy I'd never seen in my grandmother. They looked so happy. They were. For 7 days, they got to be themselves. He moved to stand beside me. Anna used to say those 7 days were worth the 40 years of missing Eleanor that followed, that even a brief taste of authentic love was better than a lifetime of pretense. "Do you believe that—" I didn't. "Before." He turned to face me. "But then I spent an evening pretending to be your boyfriend and realized I wanted it to be real. So maybe Anna was right. Maybe even brief moments of truth are worth whatever comes after." My phone rang, shattering the moment. "Madison." "Don't panic," she said, which naturally made me panic. "But Harper just showed up at Mom's house." "Harper Brad's—" "Mistress, yes. Apparently, she saw the article about you and Daniel and decided if family secrets were being exposed, she might as well expose hers. She's drunk crying and telling Mom everything about the affair. Mom's making her tea and taking notes like she's conducting an interview." "Where's Brad?" "With his lawyer. But here's the thing, Harper recorded their conversations. All of them, including ones where he discusses the insider trading. She's threatening to release them unless he leaves me for her." "That's insane." "That's my life, apparently. Oh, and reporters are now camped outside, so this will definitely make the evening news." "How's Provincetown?" "Quiet. Beautiful. Nothing like what's happening there." "Good. Stay there. Have a normal weekend with your maybe boyfriend in your grandmother's secret love house. One of us should be happy." After she hung up, I relayed the conversation to Daniel. He listened quietly, then asked, "What do you need?" "I don't know. My family is imploding, my sister's marriage is ending with blackmail, and I'm standing in a shrine to forbidden love, trying to figure out if we're real or just continuing someone else's story. We're real, he said simply. Whatever else is happening, whatever chaos is unfolding, this us is real, at least for me. How can you be sure we've known each other for 2 days? Because I've spent 2 days watching you handle impossible situations with grace, because you defend the people who hurt you, because you volunteer to read to kids and light up when you talk about your work. Because when you looked at that photo of Anna and Eleanor, you saw the beauty in their love, not just the tragedy. He stepped closer. Because when I saw you standing alone at that wedding, proud despite their judgment, I recognized something in you. Not Anna in Eleanor, but Daniel in Selena. Two people who built successful lives but forgot to leave room for partnership. Daniel, we can take this as slow as you need. We can deal with your family drama, the media attention, all of it. But don't doubt that what I feel is real. Don't reduce us to an echo of their story. We get to write our own. Outside, the sun was setting over the bay, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere out there, Anna had watched thousands of sunsets, waiting for a woman who never came. But here now, her grandson stood before me, offering something Anna never got a chance to choose love without losing everything else. Okay, I said. Okay, this is real. Okay, we write our own story. Okay to all of it. His kiss was gentle questioning, giving me room to pull away. I didn't. Instead, I leaned in, letting myself feel what our grandmothers had to hide what they'd stolen in 7 Parisian days and paid for over 40 years. When we broke apart, my phone was buzzing with more messages about the chaos at home, but for once I didn't rush to manage it, to fix it, to make it appear perfect. Harper's probably destroying my sister's life on live television by now, I said. Probably, Daniel agreed. Want to go for a walk on the beach instead of watching? Yes, I said, surprising myself. Let's go. As we walked down to the shore, hands linked, I thought about choices. Anna chose exile. Eleanor chose safety. Madison chose perfection. For years, I'd chosen solitude over the risk of disappointment. But tonight, with the Atlantic stretching endlessly before us and Daniel's hand warm in mine, I chose possibility. Whatever explosions were happening in D.C., whatever headlines tomorrow would bring, I was here writing a different ending than the one our grandmothers got. The beach was almost empty, just us and the sandpipers and the eternal rhythm of waves. In the distance, a lighthouse swept its beam across the darkening sky, a guide for those brave enough to sail at night. Anna loved this beach, Daniel said. She said it reminded her that some things endure. Tide stars love even when everything else changes. Do you think she was happy? Really happy? He considered this. I think she was complete in herself, but happy that would have required Eleanor. We walked in comfortable silence until my phone rang again. This time it was my father. Selena, I wanted you to know we're handling things here. Your mother has taken charge of the Harper situation with surprising efficiency. Also, that young man of yours sent a security team to manage the reporters. Very thoughtful. I glanced at Daniel, who shrugged innocently. Dad, is Madison okay? Your sister is discovering she's stronger than she thought. The divorce will be messy, but she'll survive. We all will. He paused. Your grandmother wants me to tell you something. She says, don't come home early. Whatever's happening here will still be happening in a few days, but what's happening there might not wait. After I hung up, Daniel asked, want to go back? No, I said firmly. Grandma's right. My family's crises will keep. This, I gestured between us at the beach, the house, everything. This is what needs attention now. We had dinner at Anna's favorite restaurant, a tiny place where the owner remembered her fondly. She always sat at that corner table, he told us, writing letters between courses. Beautiful woman but sad. Always alone, always waiting for someone. The food was excellent, the conversation easy. Daniel told me about growing up with Anna, how she'd taught him business through bedtime stories about brave women who built empires. I told him about reading to kids at the hospital, how their joy reminded me why I'd gotten into marketing to tell stories that mattered. You know what's funny?" I said over dessert. "Yesterday, I was panicking about being single at a wedding. Now I'm in the middle of a media frenzy with a maybe boyfriend and my family's secrets splashed across the internet. And somehow, this feels better." "Because it's honest," Daniel suggested. "Messy and complicated and public, but honest." To honesty, I raised my wine glass. "To choosing differently than those who came before us," he countered. We walked back to the house under stars that seemed impossibly bright after DC's light pollution. Inside, Daniel showed me to a guest room, ever the gentleman despite the charge between us. "Thank you," I said at the doorway, "for this, for managing the media, for seeing me when my own family couldn't." "Selena," he said softly, "I need you to know something. Whatever happens with us, whether this becomes something lasting or just a beautiful interlude, you've already changed things for me. You've made me want to be more than successful. You've made me want to be happy." I thought about Anna sleeping alone in this house for 40 summers, about Eleanor lying beside a kind husband and dreaming of Paris, about chances taken and missed, about love that endures everything except separation. "Stay," I said quietly. Not like that. Just stay. I don't want either of us sleeping alone in a house built for waiting." He understood. We lay fully clothed on top of the covers, hands linked between us, talking until the sunrise painted the room gold. About everything and nothing, about our grandmothers and ourselves, about the future we might build if we were brave enough. Somewhere in those pre-dawn hours, between one story and the next, I fell asleep to the sound of his heartbeat and the distant crash of waves. For the first time in years, I wasn't planning or worrying or managing anyone's expectations. I was just being with someone who saw me clearly and chose to stay anyway. The explosions could wait. The family drama would keep. But this moment, Daniel's hand in mine, sunrise through Anna's carefully chosen windows, the possibility of writing our own story, this was worth protecting. Our grandmothers never got their happy ending, but maybe I thought as sleep finally claimed me, that didn't mean we couldn't have ours. Saturday morning in Provincetown arrived with Daniel's phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand. We'd fallen asleep talking, still in yesterday's clothes, hands intertwined. The intimacy of waking up together, even fully dressed, felt more significant than any of the careful boundaries I'd maintained in past relationships. "Vivian," he groaned, checking the screen. "She has opinions about the media coverage." While he dealt with his aunt, I checked my own phone. 43 messages from Madison, ranging from "OMG" to "call me now" to "never mind, I handled it." I called her back. "What did you handle?" "Everything," she said, and there was a new note in her voice steel where there used to be sugar. "Harper showed up drunk, threatened to release the recordings, and made a scene. So I did what you would do." What I would do? I got strategic. Turns out Harper violated her NDA from Brad's company by recording those conversations. I pointed out that releasing them would open her to lawsuits. Then I offered her a choice: slink away quietly, or I'd pursue legal action and ensure she never worked in finance again. "Madison, that's impressive." "I'm getting divorced, not lobotomized. Plus, Mom helped. She was magnificent, cool as ice, taking notes like she was preparing for trial. I think the family drama finally gave her something to do besides judge our romantic choices." "How's the media situation?" "Dying down. Daniel's people released a statement confirming you're dating but asking for privacy. Very classy. The photographers got bored when we didn't give them drama." She paused. "How's the house?" I looked around Anna's bedroom, morning light streaming through the windows. It's beautiful and sad and hopeful all at once, like a museum to a life that could have been. "Are you going to keep it I don't know. It feels like a big decision to make after knowing Daniel for 3 days. 3 days, Madison mused. You know Brad and I dated for 2 years before getting engaged. Look how that turned out. Maybe timeline isn't everything. After we hung up, I found Daniel on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the bay. He'd changed into jeans and a pullover, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him. Good morning, he said, handing me a mug. Vivian sends her regards and wants to know if we're planning to elope because she'd like to buy a hat. Your aunt is relentless intrusive. Usually right about everything. He smiled. She helped raise me after my parents died. Anna was the dreamer, but Vivian was the one who made sure I ate vegetables and did homework. Tell me about your parents. He was quiet for a moment. Car accident when I was 12. They were coming back from a charity gala. Anna's foundation, actually. Rain, tired driver, wrong place at the wrong time. Anna blamed herself for years, said if she hadn't insisted on them attending, I'm sorry. It was a long time ago, but it taught me that life is shorter than we think, that waiting for the perfect moment might mean missing the moment entirely. He looked at me meaningfully, which is why I don't want to waste time pretending this is less than what it is. Which is what the beginning of something real and complicated and worth pursuing despite the media circus and family drama and inherited houses full of someone else's memories. We spent the morning exploring Provincetown, walking through galleries and shops, acting like normal people on a normal date. Except for the occasional stare of recognition, we might have been any couple enjoying a June weekend on the Cape. This is nice, I said over lunch at a harborside restaurant. Being anonymous. We could have more of it, Daniel suggested carefully. The house is here whenever we want to escape. Although, he pulled out his phone showing me an email. We might have a situation developing. The email was from his head of security. Someone had leaked the Anna Eleanor story to the press. Not the full details, but enough. Billionaire's secret family romance spans generations was already trending. How I asked, though I suspected I knew. Could be anyone from the wedding. Could be Harper trying to deflect from her own scandal. Could be someone who put the pieces together from public records. He studied my face. Are you okay? Was I my grandmother's deepest secret was about to become public consumption? But then I thought about Eleanor's words, visibility as courage, about Anna living openly even if she couldn't live completely. I think so. It was going to come out eventually. At least this way we control the narrative. Speaking of which, Daniel's expression turned serious. There's something else. Vivian didn't just come to DC for dramatic effect. There's a board meeting next week. Hawthorne Industries. They want to meet you. Me why? Because I told them I'm bringing on a new strategic advisor. Because Anna's will specified a seat for Eleanor's descendant. Because... He took my hand across the table. Because I want you involved in my life, not just personally, but professionally. Your marketing brilliance, your understanding of narrative, your ability to see through to what matters. I need that. The company needs that. Daniel, that's a huge decision. Board positions aren't casual dating activities. No, they're not. His gray eyes were steady on mine, but I'm not interested in casual. Are you... Before I could answer, my phone rang. Eleanor. Darling, she said, her voice still remarkably clear. I've made a decision. I'm going on television. What Grandma know... Yes, that nice young man from the Washington Post wants to interview me about Anna. I'm gonna tell our story. All of it. The love, the loss, the letters, the regret, everything. Grandma, are you sure once it's out there? It deserves to be out there. We hid for 60 years, and what did it gain us? Anna died alone. I lived a half-life. If our story can help even one person choose love over fear, then the publicity is worth it. Tomorrow evening, I'd like you and Daniel there. And Selena, where something Anna would have loved. We're going to celebrate her properly for the first time in 60 years. After she hung up, I relayed the conversation to Daniel. He listened thoughtfully, then said, She's right. Hiding their story doesn't honor it. Anna would want it known. We drove back to the house, the afternoon light slanting across the gardens Anna had planted for a woman who never came. Inside, I found myself drawn to the library, running my fingers along the spines of first editions. "She read all of these?" I asked. "Everyone. She said books were conversations with Eleanor, even if Eleanor couldn't hear her side." I pulled out a volume of Emily Dickinson, finding it annotated in Anna's careful script. One poem was heavily marked, "That I did always love, I bring thee proof, that till I loved, I did not love enough." She understood that love wasn't diminished by separation, Daniel said, reading over my shoulder, that it could grow even in absence. But at what cost? That's what we get to find out differently. He turned me to face him. "Selena, I know this is fast. I know we're dealing with 60 years of other people's history while trying to write our own. But I need you to know I'm not here because of obligation or inherited drama or media strategies. I'm here because from the moment I saw you at that wedding, proud and alone and absolutely refusing to be diminished, I knew you were extraordinary." I was terrified, I admitted, standing there while my family whispered, feeling like a failure because I didn't have someone beside me. "And yet you walked in anyway. That's courage." Or stubbornness. "In my experience, they're often the same thing." He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "The board meeting is Thursday. Come with me. See the company, meet the team, understand what Anna built, then decide if you want to be part of it." "And us? What are we deciding about us?" "I already know what I want," he said simply, "but you need time to trust that this is real, that I'm not going anywhere, that we're not just living out our grandmother's unfulfilled dreams. So I'll wait, as long as it takes." "Not 60 years, I hope." "God, no, I'm not that patient." We spent the evening going through more of Anna's things. I found her journals from the Paris week, with Eleanor too private to read aloud, but clearly treasured the pages soft with handling. There were ticket stubs from concerts they'd attended, pressed flowers, from walks along the Seine, a room key from their hotel. She kept everything, I marveled. She had to. 7 days of reality had to last 40 years. My phone buzzed. A text from Madison. "Check the news." The Washington Post had broken the story early. A love that spanned decades, the secret romance of Washington society. The article was surprisingly respectful, focusing on the historical context and the courage it took to love in a time when such love was forbidden. "The internet is losing its mind," Madison reported when I called. "Half the comments are crying about tragic love, the other half are fighting about whether it's appropriate to out dead people. Mom's phone won't stop ringing." "How's she handling it?" "Like a general planning a campaign. She's already scheduled 3 interviews and is writing a statement about honoring all forms of love. I think she missed her calling as a publicist." "And you?" "I filed for divorce this morning. Figured if Grandma could be brave about love, I could be brave about the lack of it. Brad didn't contest. The insider trading investigation has him scared enough to be cooperative." "I'm proud of you. Save it for tomorrow. Eleanor's interview is going to change everything. Are you ready for our family to become the poster children for hidden love and public scandal?" Was I? I looked at Daniel calmly reading financial reports while chaos swirled around us, occasionally reaching over to touch my hand, as if reassuring himself I was still there. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." That night, we sat on Anna's porch watching stars appear over the bay. The same stars she'd watched alone for 40 summers, waiting for a love that couldn't come. "Do you think they'd be happy?" I asked. "Knowing we found each other." "I think they'd be relieved that their sacrifice meant something, that their story led to ours." "Our story," I repeated. I like the sound of that. "So do I," Daniel said, pulling me closer. "So do I." Tomorrow would bring interviews and revelations, board meetings and big decisions. The world would have opinions about our grandmothers, our families, us. But tonight, in a house built from love and longing, we had the sound of waves, the warmth of connection, and the promise of a future our grandmothers could only dream of. We'd turn the tables on fate, choosing love in daylight instead of shadows, and whatever came next, we'd face it together, not as Anna and Eleanor's grandchildren living out an inherited romance, but as Daniel and Selena writing our own story with all the chances they never got to take. Sunday arrived with the kind of media frenzy usually reserved for political scandals. I woke to find Daniel already on the porch, fielding calls with the calm efficiency I was beginning to recognize as his default mode under pressure. "No, we won't be commenting beyond the family statement," he said into his phone. "Yes, the interview tonight will address questions. No, this isn't a publicity stunt for the company." I handed him fresh coffee and sat beside him watching boats bob in the harbor. "How bad is it?" "Depends on your definition of bad. The story's gone international. BBC picked it up as a historical piece on LGBTQ plus rights. The New York Times wants to do a feature on families hiding truth across generations. And someone's already optioned the film rights." Film rights, it's been 12 hours. "Welcome to the modern media cycle." He ended his call and turned to me. But here's the interesting part. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. People are sharing their own stories of family secrets, lost loves, choices made from fear versus courage. Anna and Eleanor's story is resonating. What would they think of all this? Anna would love it. She always believed visibility mattered. Eleanor. He considered. I think she'd be terrified, but proud, ready to stop hiding. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Get home. Now." Eleanor's had another moment of clarity and she's rewriting her will. Mom's having a breakdown. Dad's stress drinking. I'm stress baking again. We need you. "I have to go back," I told Daniel. "We have to go back," he corrected. "Eleanor asked for both of us, remember?" The flight home was turbulent, which felt appropriate. My entire life had become turbulent since Daniel walked into that wedding. But somewhere between the champagne toast and this moment, I'd stopped wanting smooth sailing. We arrived at my parents' house to find controlled chaos. News vans lined the street. My mother had transformed the dining room into a command center, complete with phone banks and a PR consultant she'd somehow procured on a Sunday. "Selena, thank God," she said, air-kissing me while simultaneously directing someone on where to set up lighting. "Your grandmother's been asking for you. She's in the library with the lawyers." Lawyers. She's updating everything. The will, the trust, some foundation she wants to establish. She says if she's going public with the truth, she's going all the way. I found Eleanor in the library looking frailer than yesterday, but with eyes that burned with purpose. She was surrounded by legal documents and flanked by 2 attorneys who looked like they'd been dragged from their golf games. "Selena, Daniel, good." She waved off the lawyers. "Give us a moment." When we were alone, she gestured for us to sit. "I've made decisions. First, the house in Provincetown goes to both of you, but with conditions. It can never be sold to developers. It must remain a haven for love that doesn't fit conventional molds. If you choose not to keep it personally, it becomes an artist's retreat for LGBTQ plus creators." But Grandma, I'm not finished. Second, I'm establishing the Anna and Eleanor Foundation with the money from selling my jewelry and art collection. Patricia thinks I'm crazy to liquidate family heirlooms. But what use are diamonds that were gifts from a man I respected but didn't love? The foundation will support young people whose families reject them for who they love. "That's beautiful," Daniel said. "It's necessary. Third, and this is where you come in, Selena. I'm naming you executor of the literary estate." "What literary estate?" Eleanor smiled. 3,000 letters from one of the most successful businesswomen of her generation documenting a love story that spans 60 years publishers are already calling. But more than that, I wrote too. Journals, poems, Letters I never sent, our story both sides waiting to be told. You want me to decide what gets shared and how. Protect what needs protecting while honoring what deserves light. You understand narrative, Selena. You'll know how to tell our story with both truth and kindness. The weight of the responsibility settled on my shoulders. What about Mom Madison? Your mother is discovering she quite likes being in charge of a media narrative. It's giving her purpose beyond judging everyone's romantic choices. And Madison? Well, she's finding out who she is without a husband defining her. They'll be fine. And the interview tonight? Ah, yes, my television debut at 90, she chuckled. I've decided to wear the dress I wore in Paris. Still fits mostly. Anna always loved me in blue. A knock interrupted us. Madison entered with a tray of her latest stress-baking creations. Grandmother's trending on Twitter, she announced. Also, Brad's been arrested. Thought you should know. Arrested? I stood in alarm. The recordings Harper threatened to release. Well, she didn't need to. The FBI already had enough. They picked him up an hour ago. Madison seemed remarkably calm for someone whose husband had just been arrested. I'm meeting with divorce lawyers tomorrow to ensure the twins and I are protected from any financial fallout. Are you okay? I asked. You know what I am? For the first time in years, I actually am. She sat on the arm of Eleanor's chair. Did Grandma tell you about the literary estate? We could be looking at a bestseller. The Letters of Anna and Eleanor, A Love Across Time, has a nice ring to it. We're not commercializing their pain, I said firmly. Not pain, Eleanor corrected. Love. We're sharing their love. There's a difference. That afternoon, as the interview approached, I found myself taking charge in a way I never had before. I coordinated with the news crew, managed the family's expectations, and created a strategy for handling the aftermath. Daniel watched with something like pride as I directed traffic. You're good at this, he observed during a brief break. I'm good at managing narratives. It's what I do. Now you're good at leading. There's a difference. The interviewer arrived early, a respected journalist, known for handling sensitive stories with care. I walked her through the ground. Rules showed her selected letters and photographs, and made it clear that this was about honoring a love story, not exploiting it. Your grandmother is remarkable, she said after their pre-interview chat. To decide at 90 to stop hiding, that takes incredible courage. She says she's been hiding for 60 years, I replied, and that's enough. The interview itself was magic. Eleanor, dressed in Parisian blue with her silver hair swept up, looked radiant. She spoke of Anna with a love undimmed by decades, read selected letters with a voice that trembled with emotion, and owned every choice, good and bad, that had led to this moment. Do you have regrets? The interviewer asked gently. Only one, Eleanor replied, that I let fear make my choices. Love, real love, is so rare. When you find it in whatever form it takes, you should hold on with both hands and never let go. What would you tell young people facing similar choices today? Eleanor looked directly at the camera, and I knew she was looking at me. Be braver than we were. Choose love over safety. Choose truth over comfort. Choose each other over everyone else's expectations. The world will adjust. It always does. When it ended, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even the camera crew was wiping away tears. Thank you, the interviewer said, shaking Eleanor's hand. This will help so many people. As the crew packed up, I fielded calls from publishers, documentary makers, and advocacy groups. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. But I remembered Eleanor's trust in me to protect what needed protecting, and I politely declined most requests. There will be a book, I announced to the family gathered in the living room. But on our terms, in our timeline, with our control over the narrative. This isn't just a story, it's our family's truth. We'll share it responsibly. My mother, who'd been managing the media response, nodded approvingly. When did you become so decisive? When I realized that waiting for other people's approval was keeping me from living my own life. I looked at Daniel. When I decided that choosing love was worth any amount of chaos. Speaking of which, Madison said, a sly smile playing at her lips. When's your first official public appearance as a couple? Because Amy's already planning an anniversary party where you two will be guests of honor. We haven't even... I began, but Daniel interrupted. Next Thursday, he said calmly, the Hawthorne Industries board meeting. Selena's being introduced as our new strategic advisor and board member. I haven't said yes yet, I protested. No, he agreed, but you will, because you see the potential in the company to do more than make money, because Anna's legacy deserves someone who understands the power of narrative, because you're ready to stop being afraid of being seen with me. He was right, and everyone in the room knew it. Fine, I said. Thursday, but I'm choosing my own title and writing my own bio. No girlfriend of the CEO nonsense. I wouldn't dream of it, Daniel said. Your accomplishments stand on their own. Later that evening, after the media circus had moved on to the next story and the family had dispersed to process the day's revelations, Daniel and I sat in the garden where Eleanor and my grandfather had hosted countless society parties events where Anna was never invited. She was brave tonight, I said, braver than I've ever seen her. She was inspired, Daniel corrected, by you, by watching you take control, make decisions, choose your own path. You gave her permission to do the same. All I did was say yes to a fake boyfriend at a wedding. No, all you did was change everything. For Eleanor, for your family, for me. He took my hand. For yourself, most of all. What happens now, I asked, when the interviews die down and the book is written and everyone moves on to the next scandal? Then we'll be left with what matters. The company we'll build together, the foundation Eleanor's creating, the house in Provincetown where we can escape when it all gets too much. And us, Selena, will have us. Is it enough? It's everything, he said simply. As the stars came out over Bethesda, I thought about control. For years, I'd tried to control how others saw me, crafting a perfect image that satisfied no one. But real control I was learning came from choosing your own truth and living it openly. Eleanor had taken 90 years to learn that lesson. Thanks to her courage and Anna's patience, I'd learned it in a weekend. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, board meetings, and book deals, family dynamics forever changed by truth. But tonight, sitting in a garden where hidden love had once walked in shadows, I felt powerful in a way success and achievements had never made me feel. I'd taken control not by managing everyone else's perceptions, but by finally fully choosing myself. And choosing Daniel. And choosing love. The rest, as Anna might have said, was just details. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of crisp clarity that made everything feel significant. I stood before my bedroom mirror, adjusting the blazer of my new suit, purchased specifically for the board meeting that would formally link my future to Daniel's, to Hawthorne Industries, to a legacy I was still learning to understand. Madison appeared in the doorway looking healthier than I'd seen her in years. You clean up nice, she said. Very, I belong in this boardroom and don't you forget it. That's the idea. I smoothed my skirt nervously. How are you doing? Signed the divorce papers yesterday. Brad's out on bail, but his assets are frozen. The twins and I are protected thanks to Mom's surprising legal acumen. She laughed. Who knew Patricia Winters had a shark lawyer hiding inside all that pearl-clutching? Speaking of Mom, she's in the kitchen on a conference call with Eleanor's publisher, apparently being the mother of the woman bringing Anna and Eleanor's story to light has given her a whole new identity. She's thriving. It was true. In the days since Eleanor's interview, our mother had transformed from society matron to media strategist, managing the story with a skill that suggested years of untapped potential. And Dad quit the country club yesterday, said he was tired of pretending to enjoy golf with men who were already gossiping about our family. He's in the garage restoring that old MG he bought years ago but never touched. Seems everyone's finding themselves these days. The doorbell rang before I could respond. Daniel stood on my doorstep in a charcoal suit that made my mouth go dry, holding a small wrapped box. "For luck," he said, handing it to me. Inside was an Art Deco bracelet, delicate silver with sapphires. It was Anna's, he explained, from the Paris week. She wore it every board meeting for 40 years, said it reminded her that love and business could coexist. "Daniel, I can't." "Yes, you can. She would want you to have it," Eleanor agreed. I fastened it around my wrist, feeling the weight of history and hope. The drive to Hawthorne Industries headquarters in Arlington was quiet. Daniel held my hand, thumb stroking across my knuckles in a soothing rhythm. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified. What if they think I'm just the CEO's girlfriend playing at business?" "Then they'll learn otherwise quickly. I've sent them your portfolio, your campaign results, your strategic vision for the company's narrative positioning. They're impressed, Selena. This isn't nepotism, it's smart business." The building was modern glass and steel, but the executive floor had touches of Anna's personality, original artwork, comfortable seating areas, plants everywhere. Daniel's office had the best view looking out toward the Potomac. "She designed this floor," he said, catching me admiring the space. "Said business should be beautiful, or what was the point?" The board was already assembled in the conference room, 8 people who controlled billions in assets and looked like they ate uncertainty for breakfast. But Daniel introduced me with such clear respect that they sat up and paid attention. My presentation went better than I dreamed. I outlined a vision for Hawthorne Industries that went beyond profit narrative strategies that would position the company as a leader in ethical capitalism, leveraging Anna's story and legacy to build brand loyalty that transcended mere transactions. "You're proposing we lead with values?" asked one board member, skeptical but intrigued. "I'm proposing we lead with truth," I corrected. Anna Hawthorne built this company on principles that were ahead of her time, supporting women entrepreneurs, investing in marginalized communities, creating wealth that lifted others. We don't need to create a story. We need to tell the one that already exists. Questions flew fast and sharp, but I found my rhythm. This was just another form of storytelling, and I'd been preparing for it my whole life. "One more thing," said the board chair, an elderly woman with keen eyes. "This relationship with our CEO. How do we know it won't complicate things?" Before I could answer, Daniel stood. "Because we're not hiding it. No secrets, no shame, no pretending it doesn't exist. Selena earned this position on merit. The fact that I'm also in love with her is separate but not secret. We learned from Anna and Eleanor hiding. Love makes everything more complicated, not less." The room went silent. He'd said it. Love, in front of his board on the record without hesitation. "Well," the chair said after a long pause, "that's refreshingly direct. All in favor of appointing Ms. Winters to the board." The vote was unanimous. Afterwards, in Daniel's office, I collapsed into a chair. "You told them you love me." "I told them the truth." He knelt beside my chair, taking my hands. "I love you, Selena. I've loved you since you played along with a stranger's rescue at a wedding, since you chose possibility over safety, since you looked at our grandmother's story and saw beauty instead of tragedy." "It's been a week," I said weakly. And I love you too," I admitted. "God help me, I do. But Daniel, my family is in chaos. My sister's getting divorced. My grandmother is becoming a media sensation. My mother is reinventing herself at 60. How do we build something stable on such shaky ground?" "We don't build on their ground. We build on ours." He stood, pulling me up with him. "Your family is finding their truth just like we are. Let them." My phone buzzed. Eleanor texting with the proficiency she'd developed overnight. "How did it go? Did you wear Anna's bracelet?" I showed Daniel the message. "She's gotten very tech-savvy suddenly." "She's gotten very everything suddenly. It's like admitting the truth freed her to become who she always was." We were interrupted by a knock. Vivian entered without waiting for permission, as was her way. "Congratulations," she said, handing me a bouquet of irises. Anna's favorite flower. The board made the right choice. Now we need to discuss the foundation launch. Eleanor wants it next month, which is ambitious but doable. We'll need your media expertise. Our media expertise, I corrected. I'm not doing this alone. Vivian smiled the expression, transforming her sharp features. No, you're not. None of us are anymore. That's rather the point. We spent the rest of the afternoon in strategy sessions, planning how to launch the foundation, manage the book release, and navigate the ongoing media interest. It felt surreal to be making decisions that would affect Anna and Eleanor's legacy, but also right. That evening, we gathered at my parents' house for what Madison had dubbed the family reckoning dinner. Everyone was there. Eleanor in her favorite chair, my parents looking younger somehow, Madison without her wedding ring but with a new lightness to her bearing. So, Eleanor said once we'd all settled with wine, shall we address the elephant in the room? Which one? Madison asked. We have a whole herd at this point. The fact that we've all been living lies to varying degrees for most of our lives. Eleanor's voice was gentle but firm. I set the pattern hiding my truth, teaching you all that appearance mattered more than authenticity. I'm sorry for that. Mom, my mother began, but Eleanor waved her off. Let me finish. Patricia, you learned to manage appearances so well you forgot who you were beneath them. Richard, you chose silence over conflict so often you nearly disappeared. Madison, you built a perfect life that made you miserable. And Selena, you succeeded at everything except letting yourself be loved. The truth of it stung, but cleanly like antiseptic on a wound. But look at us now, Eleanor continued. Patricia, you're magnificent in this new role. Richard, I haven't seen you this engaged in years. Madison, you're glowing despite a divorce that should be devastating you. And Selena, she smiled at me, you're radiant. Love suits you, granddaughter. So what do we do now? My father asked. Now that all the secrets are out and we're apparently becoming the poster family for late-life authenticity. We live, Eleanor said simply, openly, honestly, messily if necessary. We make mistakes and own them. We love who we love without apology. We use our story to help others find courage. She raised her glass. To the end of hiding. To the end of hiding, we echoed. Daniel's hand found mine under the table. The bracelet on my wrist caught the light, sending small rainbows across the wall. Somewhere I thought Anna was smiling. After dinner, I found myself in the garden with Eleanor. Despite the evening's chill, she seemed determined to sit where she'd sat with Anna all those decades ago. I have something for you, she said, pulling out a small velvet pouch. Inside was a ring, simple gold with an inscription too worn to read. Anna gave this to me the night before she left. I wore it on a chain under my clothes for 20 years, then hid it away when the guilt became too much. Oh, Grandma, I couldn't. It's not for wearing, not yet, maybe not ever, but keep it as a reminder that love persists, that even when we fail at betray it, hide it away, love persists. She pressed it into my hand. Don't wait 60 years to be brave, Selena. I won't, I promised. Later, as Daniel drove me home, I told him about the ring. She kept it all those years, he marveled. Hidden, but kept. Like their love, hidden, but kept. Not ours, he said firmly. Never ours. No, I agreed. Not ours. We drove in comfortable silence, the lights of DC streaming past. Tomorrow would bring more challenges running a company together, managing the foundation launch, navigating our family's continued evolution. But tonight I wore Anna's bracelet and carried Eleanor's ring and sat beside a man who'd announced his love to a boardroom without flinching. The family reckoning was ongoing, would probably continue for years as we all learned to live authentically after decades of carefully constructed facades. But for the first time that felt like freedom rather than chaos. Stay tonight, I said as we pulled up to my building. Not because I'm scared to be alone, because I want you there. Yes, he said simply. And it was simple, really. After all the complexity, the inherited drama, the family secrets, and public revelations, it came down to this: choosing love over fear, truth over comfort, each other over everyone else's expectations. Eleanor had said the world would adjust. As Daniel followed me into my apartment, into my life, into a future we'd build together, I believed her. The world always adjusted to love eventually. We just had to be brave enough to give it the chance. 6 weeks later, I stood in the editing room of a production studio in Georgetown, watching our family's story unfold on multiple screens. What had started as a simple interview with Eleanor had evolved into a full documentary after Ken Burns' production company expressed interest. The legendary filmmaker himself sat beside me reviewing footage with the intensity of a surgeon. "This sequence here," he said, pointing to a split screen of Anna in 1960s Paris alongside Eleanor at a Washington Society function, "tells the whole story without words. Two women same time worlds apart by choice and circumstance." "Where did you find the Paris footage?" I asked, mesmerized by young Anna walking along the Seine, unaware of being filmed. "French news archives. She was already becoming successful, worth documenting. Look at her face, defiant and heartbroken simultaneously." Daniel appeared with coffee, having taken the morning off to join us. In the weeks since I joined Hawthorne Industries, we'd found our rhythm, professional in the boardroom, partners everywhere. The media had moved on to other scandals, leaving us to build something real in relative peace. "How's it looking?" he asked, handing me my cup. "Well, devastating," Burns replied, "in the best possible way. Your grandmother's story. It's both deeply personal and utterly universal. The letters alone could carry the film, but the family interviews add layers." We watched Madison's segment where she discussed how Eleanor's revelation had freed her to leave a marriage built on appearances. "I realized I was repeating the pattern," she said on screen. "Choosing safety over truth. Having twins on the way makes you think about what kind of example you're setting." The twins had been born 3 weeks ago, healthy girls. Madison named Anna and Eleanor, ensuring the story would continue into another generation. "Your mother's interview is particularly powerful," Burns noted as Patricia appeared on screen. I hardly recognized her. Gone were the pearls and perfect posture. This version of my mother sat curled in a chair, speaking with raw honesty about raising daughters while hiding from herself. "I taught them to be small," she said on screen, "to fit into acceptable boxes, all while knowing my own mother was dying inside a box she'd chosen. The generational damage of hiding, it compounds like interest." "Has she seen this cut?" Daniel asked. "Not yet. I wanted your approval first." Burns paused the footage. "There's something else. We found Anna's films." "Films," Daniel and I said simultaneously. Super 8 movies, boxes of them in the Provincetown house's attic." She documented everything: board meetings, charity galas, private moments. "But Selena, there's significant footage of your family. Birthday parties, school events, graduations, all shot from a distance." My throat tightened. She was there. Often. We've synced some of it with Eleanor's letters from the same periods. The juxtaposition is, well, see for yourself. The screen filled with shaky footage of my 5th birthday party. There I was, gap-toothed and giggling, while Eleanor helped me blow out candles. The camera lingered on Eleanor's face, zoomed in as if trying to capture every detail. A voiceover read Eleanor's letter from that day. "Selena turned 5 today. She has your curiosity, your refusal to accept simple answers. When she laughs, I hear echoes of your joy. I wish you could know her. I wish she could know you. I wish I were brave enough to bridge the distance I created." "Jesus," Daniel breathed. "There's 60 hours of footage," Burns said quietly. "A lifetime of watching from afar. With your permission, we'd like to use some of it. But I understand if it's too personal." "Use it," I said immediately. "Anna deserves to be seen as more than the woman who waited. She was there, part of our lives, even if we didn't know it. Speaking of being there, Burns transitioned. We need to discuss Daniel's participation. The story feels incomplete without his perspective. Daniel had been reluctant to be interviewed, preferring to support from behind the scenes, but I knew the documentary needed his voice. I'll do it, he said, reading my expression, but only if Vivian participates too. She knew Anna best at the end. Already filmed. Burns smiled. She gave us 3 hours. That woman doesn't believe in brevity. My phone buzzed. Madison. Emergency. Harper's back. She's at Mom's house with a film crew. We have to go, I said, already grabbing my things. The ex-mistress? Burns asked with interest. That could add an interesting dimension. No, Daniel said firmly. Some parts of the story aren't for public consumption. We drove to Bethesda in record time. Sure enough, a small film crew was set up outside my parents' house. Harper at the center, looking polished and camera ready. What's she doing? I asked Madison, who met us at the curb. Apparently, she's shooting a reality show pilot, from mistress to mogul, or some garbage. She's trying to interview Mom about the family that hides everything. Through the window, I could see my mother in full Patricia Winters mode, calmly sipping tea, while Harper gestured dramatically. Should we intervene? Wait, Daniel said. Look at your mom's face. He was right. Mom was smiling, not her society smile, but the shark smile Madison had inherited. 5 minutes later, Harper stormed out, crew trailing. This isn't over, she called back. I have rights. I have a story. Mom appeared in the doorway. You have a non-disclosure agreement and a cease and desist order. Have a lovely day. As the crew packed up, Mom turned to us. Honestly, as if I'd let that woman profit from our pain. I've already called the network. Turns out they weren't aware of the legal implications of her story. The pilot's dead. Mom, you're terrifying, Madison said admiringly. I'm efficient. There's a difference. She smoothed her hair. Now who wants lunch? Eleanor's been cooking, which means we'll all end up ordering pizza, but she's enjoying herself. Inside, we found Eleanor in the kitchen covered in flour and laughing with my father, who was attempting to help. We're making Anna's mother's lasagna, Eleanor announced. From memory, so it'll either be brilliant or inedible. When did Anna teach you to cook? I asked. Paris, 1973. We spent half our week in that kitchen making a glorious mess. Her smile turned wistful. She said food was love made tangible. I never cooked for anyone after that week. Seemed like a betrayal. And now, Daniel asked. Now I'm 90 years old and running out of time to do all the things I didn't. If I want to make my dead love's mother's lasagna, I'll make it. The lasagna was predictably a disaster. We ordered pizza, but sitting around the table watching Eleanor laugh at her culinary failure while wearing Anna's apron discovered in a trunk of Paris memorabilia, I understood what she meant about time. The documentary's almost done, I told them over dessert. Burns thinks it could premiere at Sundance. Sundance. Madison's eyes widened. That's major. Our story's going Hollywood, Dad said dryly. Anna would be amused. Anna would be proud, Eleanor corrected. She believed in the power of stories to change minds. If our love story helps even one person choose authenticity, she'd consider it worth any exposure. Speaking of exposure, Mom said the book releases next month. The publishers want a tour. Eleanor and I had spent weeks curating the letters, choosing which to share and which to keep private. The resulting book was a love story, but also a historical document showing how LGBTQ+ people navigated a hostile world with grace and courage. I'll do some events, Eleanor agreed, but Selena should lead. It's her generation that needs to hear this most. My generation, we're mostly just trying to apologize before it's too late. After lunch, Daniel and I walked through the neighborhood where Eleanor had raised her family while loving someone else. The houses were stately, traditional, hiding who knows what secrets behind manicured lawns. Do you think they were happy at all? I asked. In their separate lives. I think they had moments. Anna building her empire, Eleanor raising children, but happy that required proximity they couldn't have. We have proximity, I observed. We have everything they couldn't. He stopped walking, turning to face me, which is why I need to ask you something. My heart stuttered. Daniel. Not that. Not yet. We're still learning each other. He smiled. I want to ask you to move in with me, or me with you, or us to a new place entirely, but together, Selena. No more pretending we're taking it slow when we spend every night together anyway. Very romantic. Move in with me because logistics. Move in with me because I love you, because our grandmothers waited 60 years for sleepovers and we don't have to, because I want to wake up with you every morning without checking whose apartment we're in, because I kissed him to stop the reasons that weren't necessary. Yes. Yes. Yes to moving in. Yes to proximity. Yes to not waiting 60 years for anything. That evening, we returned to Burns' studio to film Daniel's interview. He spoke eloquently about Anna's influence, about discovering the letters, about choosing love in the shadow of such epic loss. But it was his answer to the final question that broke me. What do you think Anna would say about you and Selena? Daniel was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I think she'd say we were her happy ending, that every letter she wrote, every summer she waited, every choice she made led to us having the freedom to choose each other. I think she'd say love finds a way even if it takes generations. Cut, Burns said softly. That's our ending. Later in the car, I showed Daniel the ring Eleanor had given me. I've been carrying it everywhere, like a talisman. A reminder, a promise, to be braver than they were. We already are, he said. We're living in the light. My phone lit up with texts. The family group chat, something that hadn't existed 2 months ago, was active. Madison documentary trailer just dropped. We're trending. Mom, I've scheduled media training for everyone, Tuesday at 3. Dad, do I have to go? Eleanor, yes. If I can learn TikTok, you can handle media training. Madison, Grandma is not allowed on TikTok. Eleanor, too late. Already posted. Anna would have loved social media. I showed Daniel the messages, both of us laughing at my family's chaotic evolution. From hiding everything to sharing everything in 2 months, he marveled. We're overachievers, I said, even in emotional growth. Speaking of which, when do we tell them about moving in together? What, Sunday dinner, give them time to process before the book tour starts. Your mother will want to plan things. Let her. She needs projects and we need someone to organize the movers. We drove home to his place, which would soon be our place, through streets that had witnessed so much hidden history. But tonight, windows down and music playing hands linked over the console, we weren't hiding anything. The documentary would tell one truth. The book would tell another. But the real truth was simpler love persists. Through decades and denials, through fear and distance, through generations and revelations, love persists. Anna and Eleanor knew it. Now we did too. And unlike them, we got to live it out loud. The Provincetown house looked different in autumn. The gardens had turned gold and russet, the bay choppy with October winds. I stood on the porch Anna had built for Eleanor, watching Daniel direct movers as they carefully transported boxes of our combined lives into what would be our weekend retreat. The books go in the library, though he called out, and please be careful with that painting. It's been in my family for generations. It was the portrait of Anna that had hung in his office now, coming to join the photos and letters already here. We were weaving our lives into the space Anna had created, making it ours, while honoring its history. My phone rang, Madison FaceTiming from her new apartment in Old Town Alexandria. Show me everything, she demanded. Is the furniture there yet? I walked through the house, showing her our progress. The master bedroom now held the bed we'd chosen together, positioned to catch the morning light off the bay. The study had 2 desks. We'd learned quickly that working from home together required separate spaces. The kitchen scene of Eleanor's disastrous lasagna attempt had been updated, but kept its charm. It's perfect, Madison sighed. The twins would love the beach. Bring them next month. Eleanor wants a full family Thanksgiving here. Eleanor's coming to Provincetown. Madison's eyes widened. But she hasn't been since Paris, 1973. I know. She says it's time. Madison was quiet for a moment. Behind her, I could hear the twins babbling. Everything's changing so fast, Sel. Good changes, but still. Sometimes I can't believe this is our life now. I know what you mean. And I did. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind. The documentary had premiered to critical acclaim, sparking conversations about hidden histories and the cost of conformity. The book hit the New York Times bestseller list its first week. The foundation had launched with a gala that raised $2 million in one night. But more than the public success, it was the private changes that amazed me. Madison, thriving as a single mother, had started her own consulting firm, helping women navigate high-stakes divorces. Our mother had become a sought-after speaker on family authenticity and second acts. Our father had opened a classic car restoration shop, finally pursuing a passion he'd buried for decades. And Eleanor had become a sensation at 90 with her own Instagram account. Eleanor Loves Anna, where she shared daily letters and memories. Her followers called her Grandma Goals and shared their own stories of love found lost and sometimes found again. How's the board position treating you? Madison asked, bringing me back to the present. Challenging, but good. We're restructuring the foundation to fund LGBTQ+ housing initiatives. Daniel's idea, actually. He wants to create spaces like this house refuges for people who need them. He's a keeper. I'm aware, I said, watching him through the window. He was laughing with the movers, probably telling them about Anna's specific instructions for how furniture should face the water. He'd embraced the house's history while helping me make it ours. After Madison hung up, I continued my tour. The sunroom had become my office, where I was writing the sequel to the Letters book. This one focused on the family's journey after Revelation. The publisher wanted it yesterday, but I was taking my time. Some stories couldn't be rushed. Last box, Daniel announced, appearing with a small carton labeled Important Open First. Inside were 2 champagne flutes and a bottle of Dom Perignon with a note. For your first sunset in your new home. May you have 60 years of them together. Love, Eleanor. Your grandmother continues to be the most romantic person in our family, Daniel said, retrieving the bottle. She's making up for lost time. We carried the glasses to the porch, settling into the swing Anna had installed but never shared with Eleanor. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the sky in shades Anna had tried to capture in letters, but never quite could. Do you think they'd approve, I asked, of us being here together? I think they'd be relieved, Daniel said. Their story gets a different ending through us. Not an ending, a beginning. To beginnings, then, he raised his glass. To beginnings. The champagne was perfect, the sunset spectacular, but it was the quiet rhythm of the swing and Daniel's solid presence beside me that felt most like home. My phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. Are you watching the sunset? Anna wrote about them constantly. She said Provincetown sunsets looked like the sky was saying goodbye in the most beautiful way possible. I showed Daniel the message. Should we tell her we're here? Let's surprise her at Thanksgiving. She'll cry. She'll cry anyway. She cries at everything now, says she's making up for 60 years of holding them in. A car pulled into the driveway, not unusual, given the steady stream of deliveries, but this wasn't a delivery truck. It was a rental car, and the woman who stepped out looked familiar but out of context. Is that B. Vivian, Daniel confirmed, already standing. And she looks pleased, which means she's about to complicate our lives somehow. Vivian approached with her usual brisk efficiency, but I caught her studying the house with something softer than her typical sharp assessment. I haven't been here in 20 years, she said without preamble. Anna made me promise to check on it every decade, but after she died. She trailed off, then seemed to shake herself. Well, you two have done well. She'd approve of the updates. Oh, Vivian, Daniel said carefully. Not that we're not happy to see you, but why are you here? Two reasons. First, to deliver this. She handed me a leather journal. Anna's last diary. She wanted you to have it, Selena, but only after you'd lived in the house. Said you'd understand it better once you'd watched a few sunsets from her porch. The journal was worn soft with age and handling. I opened it carefully, seeing Anna's handwriting shakier than in the early letters, but still distinctive. I'll read it later, I said, clutching it carefully. What's the second reason? Vivian smiled, the expression transforming her face. I've met someone. Daniel actually staggered. What? Oh, don't look so shocked. I'm only 72, hardly dead. She settled into one of the porch chairs as if she owned the place. Her name is Margaret. She's a federal judge. We met at your foundation gala, bonded over having brilliant, stubborn relatives who insisted on turning family secrets into public crusades. Vivian, I breathed. That's wonderful. It's impractical, is what it is. She lives in Seattle. I live in D.C. We're both set in our ways and busy with careers that matter. She paused. Which is why I need your advice. You two have made the impractical work. How? Daniel and I exchanged glances. Vivian asking for advice was like the sun asking the moon for lighting tips. You choose each other, I said finally. Every day in small ways and big ones, you make space for both the life you built alone and the one you're building together. And you don't wait, Daniel added. Whatever time you have, you don't waste it on fear or propriety or what-ifs. Vivian was quiet, looking out at the bay. Anna said something similar once. Right after Eleanor chose safety, she said the only real tragedy was loving someone and not telling them, not showing them, not fighting for the chance to try. So tell her, I urged. Show her, fight for it. I'm 72, Vivian repeated, but it sounded less like an excuse now. Eleanor's 90 and posting TikToks. Age is just context. That startled a laugh out of her. Fair point. All right, I'll call Margaret, but if this goes poorly, I'm blaming both of you. She stayed for dinner, regaling us with stories of Anna. We'd never heard the business triumphs, the quiet philanthropies, the way she'd built an empire while nursing a broken heart. As night fell and Vivian prepared to leave, she hugged us both. Take care of this place, she said. It's more than just a house. It's proof that love endures even when lovers can't. After she left, Daniel and I cleaned up in comfortable domesticity. Our first night in the house, officially moved in, officially building something together on the foundation of Anna's patient hope. Should we read it? Daniel asked, gesturing to Anna's journal. Together, I decided. We curled up in the library fire, crackling in the fireplace Anna had installed, but according to Vivian, never used. Too romantic for one, she'd said. I opened the journal to the first page dated just weeks before Anna's death. My dearest ones, it began, if you're reading this, then you're here, in the house I built for a love that couldn't visit. And if you're here together, then perhaps my greatest hope has been realized that love denied to one generation might flourish in the next. We read late into the night Anna's final thoughts, a benediction on the choice we'd made. She wrote of regrets, but more of gratitude, of loneliness transformed into purpose, of how loving Eleanor even from afar had made her bigger than she could have been alone. I do not regret loving her, one passage read. I regret only that we let fear decide our geography. Love should be the only compass that matters. The last entry was dated 3 days before her death. The house is ready. It has been ready for 40 years. I won't see Eleanor here, but perhaps that was never the point. Perhaps the point was to build something from love, even unrequited love and trust, that love to find its way home. Tonight, I'll dream of Provincetown sunsets and Paris mornings and the space between them, where our granddaughter and her beloved might write a different story. Let them be brave where we were frightened. Let them stay where we parted. Let them begin where we ended. I was crying by the time I finished reading, Daniel's arms around me, the fire dying to embers. She knew, I whispered. Somehow she knew we'd find each other. Or she hoped, Daniel said, and made sure we'd have every chance to try. We sat in silence, holding Anna's words and each other. Outside, the Atlantic crashed against the shore in its eternal rhythm. The house settled around us, no longer a monument to waiting, but a home for living. I'm glad we're here, I said finally. All of it, the chaos, the revelations, the public spectacle, it led us here. To beginnings. Daniel echoed our earlier toast. To beginnings. We banked the fire and headed upstairs, Anna's journal carefully placed on the bedside table. Tomorrow would bring more unpacking, more blending of our lives into this space. The family would visit. The world would continue to have opinions about our story. The foundation would grow, helping others find their own brave beginnings. But tonight in the house Anna built for Eleanor, we were just Selena and Daniel, two people who'd found each other across a crowded wedding reception and chosen to keep finding each other every day since. The moon rose over Cape Cod Bay, silvering the water Anna had watched alone for so many years. But the house was no longer empty, no longer waiting. Love had finally come home 2 generations late, but right on time. As I fell asleep in Daniel's arms, I thought I heard the house itself sighing with satisfaction. Or maybe it was just the wind off the bay carrying the echoes of all those letters, all that patient hope finally finding its rest. Either way, we were home, and we were just beginning. The morning of our wedding dawned clear and bright, the kind of June day Anna had described in countless letters, but never got to share with Eleanor. I stood at the bedroom window of the Provincetown house, watching the bay sparkle when Madison burst in with coffee and an expression of barely controlled chaos. The flowers are here, the caterer is setting up, and Grandma's been awake since 4 practicing her reading, she reported. Also, Mom's reorganizing the seating chart again, because apparently the sunset angle matters for photos. Let her, I said, surprisingly calm. She needs the distraction. It had been a year of changes, challenges, and growth. The documentary had won an Emmy. The book had been translated into 12 languages. The foundation had funded 23 housing projects for LGBTQ+ youth. But more importantly, our family had learned to live authentically, messily, and joyfully. Daniel's at the inn with his groomsmen, Madison continued. Vivian's there too, keeping everyone in line. Margaret flew in from Seattle last night. They're officially moving in together, by the way. Really, Vivian said something about not wasting any more time. Sound familiar? Through the window, I could see the beach where we'd set up for the ceremony. Simple white chairs facing the water, an arch of roses and baby's breath that Eleanor had insisted on designing herself. Anna loved roses, she'd said. She grew them in Paris, sent me pressed petals and letters. This wedding needs roses. A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. Eleanor entered, already dressed in her soft blue outfit, holding a velvet box. Good morning, darling. How are you feeling? Like I'm about to marry the love of my life in the house his grandmother built for mine, I said. So, surreal, but right. Eleanor smiled, sitting on the bed and patting the spot beside her. I have something for you. Several somethings, actually. From the box, she pulled out a strand of pearls. These were Anna's. She wore them to every board meeting, said they reminded her that beauty and business weren't mutually exclusive. I think she'd want you to have them today. Grandma. My throat tightened as she fastened them around my neck. I'm not finished. Next came a small leather book. Anna's vows to me. The ones she wrote but never got to say. I thought, well, perhaps they belong here today. I opened the book carefully. Anna's handwriting, young and hopeful. Eleanor, I promise to love you in sunshine and shadow, in presence and absence, in the time we have and the time we're denied. I promise that distance will never diminish what I feel, that years will only deepen my devotion, that even if the world keeps us apart, you will never spend a day unloved. Oh, I breathed tears threatening my carefully applied makeup. And finally, Eleanor pulled out a photograph. This was taken the day before Anna left for Paris. Our last day together, though we didn't know it then. We were so young, so frightened, so in love. I want you to carry it today, not as a reminder of what we lost, but of what love can endure. The photo showed two radiant young women, arms linked, laughing at something beyond the camera. They looked free, unburdened by the knowledge of what was coming. Thank you, I whispered, hugging her carefully. No, darling, thank you. You and Daniel gave our story a different ending. Because of you, I got to tell Anna I loved her, even if she was already gone. Because of you, our love story becomes part of a larger truth, that love wins eventually, even if it takes generations. Madison reappeared with my dress, a simple but elegant design that moved like water. As she helped me into it, she chattered about the twins who had been promoted to flower girls, the weather perfect, and her new relationship promising but early days. You're happy, hon, I observed as she fastened the buttons. I am, she said, sounding surprised, genuinely independently happy. Who knew that was possible? Anna knew. She built a whole life on it. Yeah, but she was also desperately in love with someone she couldn't have. I'm just free. It's nice. My mother arrived next, efficient as ever, but softer somehow. She'd embraced her role as the family's chief organizer, but with less judgment and more joy. You look beautiful, she said, then paused. I'm proud of you, Selena, for choosing love over logic, for showing all of us that there's another way to live. Mom, let me finish. I spent so many years trying to force you and Madison into shapes that felt safe to me. But you were never meant to be safe. You were meant to be brave. Anna and Eleanor would be so proud of who you've become. The photographer arrived for the getting ready shots, and suddenly the room was full of movement. Madison touching up lipstick, Mom adjusting the veil, Eleanor sharing stories that made everyone laugh. The twins toddled in, wearing their flower girl dresses, immediately trying to eat the rose petals they were supposed to scatter. 5 minutes, someone called, and my heart rate jumped. I need a moment, I said, and everyone understood, filing out to take their places. I stood alone in Anna's bedroom, my bedroom now, and looked at myself in the mirror she'd looked in for 40 years. The woman looking back wore Anna's pearls, and Eleanor's ring, resized to fit, carried their photo and their vows, but was decidedly herself. Not an echo of their story, but the next chapter. A soft knock. Selena, Daniel's voice breaking tradition. I know I'm not supposed to see you, but... I opened the door. He stood there in his dark suit boutonniere of roses from Anna's garden, looking nervous and perfect and mine. Hi, I said brilliantly. Hi, I needed to tell you something before we do this. If you're having second thoughts... Never. The opposite. He took my hands, careful not to really look at the dress. I wanted to say thank you for taking a chance on a stranger at a wedding, for seeing past the performance to what could be real, for choosing to build something new on such complicated foundations, for being brave enough to love out loud when our grandmothers had to love in whispers. Daniel, I know we're supposed to save the vows for the beach, but I needed you to know you've already given me everything Anna wished for Eleanor. A partner, a purpose, a love that makes every day better than the last. So thank you. I kissed him, tradition be damned. I love you. I love you too. Now let's go get married before your mother reorganizes the entire beach. He was gone before I could respond, leaving me laughing and crying and ready. The walk to the beach was a blur of faces, colleagues from the company, friends, from college, family members who'd learned to celebrate rather than judge. But it was the front row that made me pause Eleanor in her blue tears already streaming. My parents' hands linked in a way I rarely saw, Madison holding the twins while managing to look effortlessly elegant. Vivian and Margaret proof that love could begin at any age. And Daniel, standing at the Arch of Roses with the Atlantic as backdrop, looking at me like I was the answer to every question he'd never known to ask. My father walked me down the sandy aisle, whispering, "Anna and Eleanor are here. Can you feel them?" I could. In the roses, the ocean breeze, the way the light hit the water, just as Anna had described in letter after letter. The ceremony was simple, officiated by a friend who understood our story. But when it came time for the readings, Eleanor stood carefully holding the letter I'd selected from Anna's thousands. "My dearest Eleanor," she read in a voice that carried across the beach. "Today I walked along Cape Cod Bay and imagined you beside me. One day I dream we'll walk here together, not stolen moments, but endless time. Until then, know that every sunset I watch alone is also watched with you, that love requires no proximity to remain constant, that you are with me always, even in absence. Especially in absence. Forever, Anna." There wasn't a dry eye on the beach. When it came time for vows, Daniel and I had agreed to write our own. He went first. "Selena, a year ago, I walked into a wedding to fulfill a decades-old promise. I expected to play a part for one evening. Instead, I found my life's partner. You've taught me that love isn't just about grand gestures, but daily choices. I promise to choose you every morning and every night, in success and struggle, in quiet moments and public celebrations. I promise to honor not just our love, but the love that came before, to build something worthy of their sacrifice. Most of all, I promise to love you boldly, proudly, and without reservation for whatever time we're given, knowing that every day with you is a gift our grandmothers were denied." Through tears, I managed my own vows. "Daniel, you appeared in my life like something out of a dream, too perfect to be real, but you are real in all the ways that matter. You see me clearly and love me anyway. You've shown me that partnership doesn't diminish independence, but enhances it. I promise to support your dreams while chasing my own, to find joy in our daily life while honoring our extraordinary history. I promise to be brave when fear feels easier, to choose truth when hiding feels safer, to love you with the freedom Anna and Eleanor couldn't claim. I promise to write our story together, page by page, making it worthy of the prologue they gave us." The judge pronounced us married just as the sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that Anna had tried to capture in words, but that could only be experienced. 60 years later, but worth the wait," Eleanor called out as we kissed, making everyone laugh through their tears. The reception was in Anna's garden, transformed with lights and flowers, but maintaining its essential character. Toasts ranged from hilarious Madison explaining how I'd accidentally acquired a billionaire, to heartfelt Vivian reading a letter Anna had written about hope for future generations. But it was Eleanor who brought the house down, raising her champagne with steady hands. To Anna, who loved me better from across an ocean than most people love from across a pillow. To chances not taken that led to chances seized. To my granddaughter and her husband, who show us daily that love doesn't require hiding. And to all of us learning that it's never too late to choose joy. "To joy," the crowd echoed. As the evening wore on, I found myself on the porch swing with Daniel, watching our families and friends celebrate in the garden Anna had planted for a party that never came. "She got her party," Daniel observed, following my thoughts. "Just 60 years late." "Or right on time," he countered. "Our time." Eleanor appeared, having shed her formal jacket for comfort. "Room for one more." We made space, the three of us swinging gently as music drifted from the garden. I've been thinking, Eleanor said, about time and love and waiting. Anna waited 40 years for me to be brave. I waited 60 years to tell our truth. But you two? You didn't wait at all. You just loved openly and immediately. We had your example, I said. We knew what waiting cost. Perhaps, or perhaps every generation gets braver. Anna and I could only love in letters. You can love in life. She patted my hand. Don't waste a moment of it. Madison appeared with the twins who'd reached their limit of good behavior. They want Aunt Selena to read them a story, she said. Even at your own wedding, you're on story duty. I looked at Daniel, who grinned. Go, I'll save you some cake. So there on my wedding night, I found myself in Anna's library, reading to my nieces from the children's books Anna had collected but never got to share. Through the window, I could see the reception continuing, my father teaching Daniel's colleagues to swing dance, my mother orchestrating group photos, Vivian and Margaret deep in conversation about their future. And they lived happily ever after. I finished watching little Anna and Eleanor already living up to their namesakes by being simultaneously angelic and chaotic, drift off to sleep. Yes, a voice said from the doorway. They did. Daniel stood there, having shed his jacket, looking at me with such love it took my breath away. Ready to rejoin our party. In a moment. I carefully extracted myself from sleeping toddlers. I just want to remember this, all of it, the fullness Anna imagined but never got to live. He pulled me into his arms. We get to live it for them. And for us. Especially for us. We returned to find the party had evolved into something more intimate. Eleanor was teaching a group of young people the foxtrot. My parents were actually dancing together, looking younger than I'd seen them in years. The band was playing La Vie en Rose, because of course they were. As Daniel and I took the floor for one last dance, I thought about circles completing. Anna and Eleanor had danced to this song once in Paris, in a small club where no one knew them. Now their grandchildren danced to it openly, surrounded by family and friends who celebrated rather than condemned their love. "Thank you for marrying me," Daniel whispered. "Thank you for finding me," I whispered back. The song ended, but we kept swaying, unwilling to let go. Around us, the party continued, joyful and messy and perfect. In the distance, waves crashed against the shore where Anna had walked alone for so many years. But tonight, the house was full. The garden bloomed with laughter. Love had won finally and completely. As the last guest departed and we stood amid the gentle chaos of a successful reception, Eleanor took both our hands. "Be happy," she said simply. "Be so magnificently, unapologetically happy. That's all they wanted for us. That's all any of us want for those we love." Later, as Daniel and I lay in the bed we'd chosen together in the house, built from patient hope-wearing rings, that meant we'd chosen each other in front of everyone who mattered. I felt the presence of two women who'd loved across impossible distance. "We did it," I whispered to them, to the night, to the universe that had somehow conspired to bring us together. "We gave your story a different ending." Outside, the lighthouse swept its beam across the water, a guide for those brave enough to sail at night. But we were already home, already safe, already everything Anna and Eleanor had dreamed love could be. Our story was just beginning, but it was built on theirs, on letters, and longing, on courage, finally found on the truth that love endures everything except being hidden. As sleep claimed us, I thought I heard the house itself settling with satisfaction, or maybe it was just Anna and Eleanor finally at peace, knowing their love had found its way home through us. Either way, we were here. We were married. We were proof that some stories, no matter how long delayed, get their happy endings. And somewhere in the distance, dawn was already approaching, bringing the first day of all the days we'd have together. Days our grandmothers had dreamed of but never seen. Days we'd live fully loving, boldly honoring their sacrifice by never wasting a single moment of the freedom they'd won for us. I love you, I said into the darkness. I love you too, Daniel replied, for all the days we get. For all the days we get. Author's note. Thank you for joining Selena and Daniel on their journey from a chance meeting to a love that heals generational wounds. If this story touched you, please remember that love comes in many forms, all deserving of celebration and respect. In a world that often asks us to hide our true selves, may we all find the courage to love openly, live authentically, and choose joy over fear. What kind of love are you brave enough to choose? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to hear that love in all its forms is worth celebrating. Thank you for reading, and may your own story be filled with the kind of love that transforms generations. With love and hope for your own beautiful beginning, the author.